and albeit under less than ideal circumstances. I wish I could offer a more assuring prognosis for our nation going forward. Despite the public's relaxed posture in regard to this novel virus, I'm increasingly concerned about a new variant we're seeing that is very likely to rear its ugly head in 2025. I have already been in touch with several leading scientists at NIH and the World Health Organization.
Fauci. Yes.
Oh, son of a bitch.
What the hell's going on out here?
Get that ugly, disabled freak away from me.
Patriot.
Dumps. They call them dumps. Big, massive dumps.
Stupid? Are you a stupid person?
Some of these women, they're so stupid.
Oh, look at my African American over here. Look at him.
I don't really care, Margaret.
What is that?
The N-word.
We're going to kill them. You know, they're going to be like dead.
I've got an idea. Why don't we just kill him?
White males way up. White males have gone through the roof. White males way up.
We're going to win so much, you may even get tired of winning. And you'll say, please, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore. Mr. President, it's too much. And I'll say, no, it isn't. We have to keep winning. We have to win more. We're going to win more.
You know, honestly, I have a dream. I have a dream that one day I will get to experience an entire Labe's episode's worth of time listening to the Labe intro and just sitting there and listening to it myself. If you ever need me to charge into battle, play the fucking Labe intro for me, man. Oh, let's go. Let's go. It is Friday. We are going to have a Fry Labe. The pre-show was banging. Some heaters in that one. Get me all hyped up. It's been like a really muggy, sort of like mid-70s day all day today, and then the wind has picked up this evening. And all of a sudden it started to get a little cold. I even had to kind of close the window just a little bit to kind of warm up the toes just a bit, which has not been the case in Texas of late. And so that just kind of gave me that extra little bit of whew, all right, ready to go. Pro tip for you guys: if you are experiencing heartburn at all, my wife just introduced me to the most brilliant solution of all time. It works. She said this is a pregnancy, something she learned. It's like a pregnant mom trick. Just get some water and put a little spoonful of baking soda in it, stir it up, and just knock it down the hatch. It's chemistry. It's science, bitch. It is chemistry. I think you're introducing a base to counter the acid or something like that. You're restoring the proper pH of your belly, and then the heartburn goes away. It's brilliant. It works so well. Yeah, baking soda is the most advanced shit we've ever discovered. Yeah, there's so many things with baking soda. I could just keep learning about things with baking soda. And I'm like, this needs to be a key part of the American lifestyle. It's a key, like, household appliance almost. Anyways, yeah, we got ourselves a Labe here tonight. We got a preview, a Pseudowave preview, and then a few odds and ends things here. I'm gonna try to purge some of the backlog, try to get some of the stuff I've been sitting on for a little bit. It's good stuff. It's just it keeps getting crowded out, so I kind of mashed a bunch of it into one, and we'll see how long we end up going. I've got some longer things to read here toward the back end. They're a little more timeless. Donald Trump's 15-year-old book on public policy reveals what kind of president he'd be. Then a bit here about Margot Martin, lesser-known member of the president's staff. She is the social media photographer she's like the photographer and social media manager kind of for a lot of the Trump propaganda machine. So those are kind of interesting, and I've got some stuff here about, there's one about Trump, as signs of aging emerge, Trump responds with defiance. This is from Wall Street Journal, and talks about his aspirin habits. Speaking of, there's another. Baking soda and aspirin, that's like all you need. So I got something on that, and then there's some stuff here about Bridge Colby. So we're for sure going to go up to the Bridge Colby stuff. I don't know if we'll get to all that other stuff afterwards. We'll see how long it takes us. But the bridge at the center of the Pentagon, an architect of U.S. defense strategy, Elbridge Colby, a patriot at the Pentagon, is showing his influence lately. And there's a blog or an essay here by a guy named Michael McNair talking about how that Elbridge Colby published his playbook years before taking office, and he breaks down his framework, shows its influence on the national security strategy, and why the spheres of influence theory gets it wrong. So this is interesting. This is not necessarily a pro-globalist take. It's just saying that this common trope that's developing about spheres of influence doesn't accurately correspond to Bridge Colby's philosophy as he's explained it. And it's clear that Bridge Colby is very influential within at the Pentagon. So we're going to go through that. And you guys may have remembered, if you listened to Tucker Carlson, or if you listened to the Labe about a year and a half ago, Bridge Colby went on Tucker's show, and they had a very interesting conversation about the liberal tradition, and they're two like deep WASP families the inheritors of two deep wasp families talking to each other about wasp things. It was a very, very interesting conversation. And he's a close ally and friend of one JD Vance. So I've got a little video here of JD Vance that he gave at Elbridge Colby's nomination for his position. He's like the Undersecretary for Defense or something like that. So he's not top tier cabinet. He's like second tier. And then also a short little brief video here of Eric Schmidt, Senator Eric Schmidt, giving his endorsement of Bridge Colby. So, yeah, and then I've got a whole bunch of other odds and ends things. So we will get into that here in just 1 second. I need to do a little bit of housekeeping. First of all, yesterday, as soon as I finished, a couple of you guys reached out and mentioned that you'd been trying to use the tips link and it was failing. And so I went and checked, and I have a log of the attempts. And for a couple of you, the code it triggered was the wrong CVC code, but it was basically just something about the data with the card was entered wrong, the security data on it. So it flagged it, and then the subsequent attempts by those people were blocklisted. It said that this is from a block list. So I turned off that function. As far as I can tell, it's some sort of Stripe function. I turned it off and said, like, don't blocklist these what you perceive as high risk transactions. So that's probably what it was. And if in the future, if you guys try to send something and it doesn't come through, let me know, because I want to go troubleshoot and figure out why it is that it's not going through. So thanks to you, those of you who were attempting to send something yesterday. You're, of course, more than welcome to try it again today. Spud says, I did enter the wrong CVC number once, but not the second time. Yeah, so the first time, once you enter the wrong CVC number, then Stripe, I guess the security settings or something that were defaulted on Stripe said, if payment info is entered wrong, this becomes a high-risk transaction and it has to be rejected. So I cleared those out, and I think what I didn't just clear out those past instances and approve, like whitelist those cards again, but it actually said don't do this anymore in the future. It's kind of hard to figure out. Like it's a whole ass career just trying to figure out how all these different software things work to string this thing to that thing to produce everything that you see here today. So your contributions to my streamer salary are very much appreciated. And this is, if we hit the goal again this month, then we are full go on the Make More Ericssons project. So you guys can contribute to that by giving us the income security that we need to continue producing Ericssons. Deeply appreciative to all of you guys who have done so. Speaking of, we have got one to start off with today. Teal Bucks! This one, it says somebody tips $200, but the man himself confessed in the chat. This was Dave Johnson, the gayest man in the world.
You know, Dave Johnson is the gayest person to ever walk this green earth.
Gayest person to ever walk this green earth. And the dispenser of Teal Bucks. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate you. I am very happy to be on the Teal Bucks payroll. Proud to pocket my $7,000. You know what I should do? You know, I should just set my salary at $7,000. I just thought of that. Set my salary at $7,000 and call it my, I don't know, call it my Jew money or to call it Teal Bucks or something like that. Oh, yeah. Yeah, and if you guys get me to $7,000, we're going to do some special stuff. Dave says, I did ask for Real American. That's right, you did ask for that. You got to give me a second here to pull it up because I did not have it prepared. Give me a moment. Let me find it. There's a bunch of different versions, but there's one that I like. Here we go. You give Teal Bucks, You get to dictate what goes on the stream.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
I am a real American. Fight for the rights of every man. I am a
boner time.
American. Fight for what's right. Fight for
That's a really unfortunate thing to yell when there's a picture of a kid on the screen.
When it comes crashing down and it hurts inside, you gotta take a stand, it don't have to hide. If you hurt my friends, then you hurt my pride. I gotta be a man, I can't let it slide. I am a real American. Fight for the rights of
Imagine showing this to George Washington, says Mr. Buttfood.
fight for what's right, fight for your life. I feel strong about right and wrong, and I don't take trouble for very long. I got something deep inside.
Look at my Norwood American.
Courage is the thing that keeps us free. I am a real American. Fight for the rights of every
This is true timeless art.
I am a real American. Fight for what's right. Fight for your life. I am a real American. Fight for the rights of every man.
Heyo, that's me.
Real American. Fight for what's right. Fight for your life. If you hurt my friends, then you hurt my pride. I gotta be a man, I can't let it slide. I am a real American. Fight for the rights of
Where are my Trumpomaniacs?
I am a real American. Fight for what's right. Fight for your life. I am a real American. Fight for the rights of every man. I am a real American. Fight for what's right. Fight for your life. I am a real
Train, say your prayers, eat your vitamins, be true to yourself, true to your country, be a real American. Whew.
Ah! Oh, my Trumps. This is a Trump's night, man. Oh, you could not be a boy between, like, I don't know, 6 and 15. I mean, obviously there isn't really a top ceiling, but that moment in time, being in that age bracket at that moment in time, you could not walk past Hulk Hogan and not be like, that's the fucking coolest thing I've ever seen. I want to be that guy when I grow up. I don't know what he does, but whatever it is, I want to do it. Spoke to a young man's soul. All right, in the spirit of the Teal Bucks, we've got a new rule here on the stream. If you contribute Teal Bucks to the Teal Bucks Fund, then, well, that's weird. I wonder where that came from. Odd. If you contribute Teal Bucks to the Teal Bucks Fund, then you get to request whatever you want to be played, and we will entertain whatever. I mean, you own the content on the stream. I'm merely your voice. I'm just the vehicle, the vessel that you use to propagandize everyone else. So you contribute to the Teal Bucks Fund, 200 and up, and I become your vessel. You tell the people, you broadcast to the people, whatever you want. It's called value for value, yes.
Welcome to the Gulag. If you survive, you earn your freedom.
Welcome, Douglas Archer. Gifted a sub by Screwed Nevsky. Nevsky, you're a patriot, sir. My fellow Texan. I think you're an actual Texan, aren't you? Okay, so let's get now started with I do words with a Week 51 preview of the Sudawave. What is in store for us on the next Sudawave? C-words! Great Tales time! European mind cannot comprehend. Yes! He's here for you, Maduro! The laser eye! Who was talking shit? Who was trying to get a big dick with my president? Looking awful meek now there, Nicholas.
Yeah, we're running a little bit hot tonight. I can barely see the road from the heat coming up.
It smells like bitch in here.
Reach down between my legs, ease the seat back. She's running, I'm riding, right behind it, real me now.
Imagine not being American! Your presidents and turn them into action figures. That's literally all that's left of him. Ah! Holy crap! Incredible! Dave Johnson, you glorious bastard, with 10 gifted subs. Wit, Forever Bulk, Trend Fear, Hope Pill. Hope Pill is coming up right now. Congrats to Hope Pill, by the way, for being the winner of the free year in the King Pill Discord. And then Caradwin, Theodore Dragonsbane, Gigajew, Yusuf, Ardrago, and His Majesty. Congratulations to all of you. Thank you, Dave, for the gifted subs. You are single-handedly keeping me in business here, son. I appreciate you. Okay, hold on. Speaking of, let me just go double check here and make sure. Okay, I was just making sure that Hope hadn't joined the Discord yet, because as soon as you join, I'm going to have to assign a role to you. Otherwise, things might look a little wonky. So just let me know as soon as you have joined. Let's see. We got a we got a celebration of some white boys here. We got our first contribution is a wife jack submission. Mrs. Kingpill presents this to the class.
With some absolute banger loot. Nerds gummy rope and a whoopee cushion from the arcade. Does life get any better, y'all? Woo! See how this sounds. Oh, just a little bit of juice left. This is hilarious, dude. Whoa, it's wireless too. What the heck? We came home with some absolute banger loot.
Oh man, that reminds me of a clip you may have heard on EWBSX at some point, where it says, "If you choose not to laugh at farts, you're choosing to live. It's like you're choosing to live a life with a lot less laughing and the same number of farts." Just beautiful, beautiful philosophy. I'll always laugh at farts. Look at this boy here. This artist, a true Wang half. This artist plays one of Vivaldi's most difficult pieces on his accordion. Where's Jeff Accordion at? We found him. We found what he's been doing when he's not in the Labe chat. One of Vivaldi's most difficult pieces on his accordion, a work that is normally performed by a whole orchestra. This is, come on, there we go. This is a banger. Look at those fingers fly! Feel it, boy! Douglas Archer, you bastard. He said, this is what is required to please a woman. So true. This is what autism looks like, man. That is thousands of hours of practice. That is an incredible dedication to a craft to be able to do that, man. Beautiful. Okay, let's mog the Brits here for a second. This is they like to talk all this like, oh, how great their empire was, and the sun never set on the British Empire, and they just look down their nose. We're just we're like the dumb young chud brother that just is kind of a retard, and they're embarrassed to be seen around us. And then they get to experience what it's like to actually eat food.
What does that look like to you?
Mud.
For your first ever bite of Texas barbecue, I think we should try some burnt ends.
Oh my god, that just melted in my mouth.
Yeah. I can't even explain. It's absolutely sublime.
The N-word!
Really
So it doesn't taste like mud?
No. Wow. I can't even describe it. Perfect. That is so good. It tastes like steak or smoky. My eyes are watering. I've not eaten all day, and it's probably the best thing I've ever eaten.
Wow. What age can you legally move to America?
We're going to take all your boys. All the young British lads are going to come over here and eat our meat. Yeah, you heard me. The United Arab Emirates is restricting their nationals from enrolling at British universities over fears that UK campuses are being radicalized by radical Islamist groups. The UAE has a lower tolerance for radical Islam than the freaking UK. Can you imagine? Can you imagine how fucking hard these guys were laughing when they were putting together that policy? Like, we're gonna tell we're gonna tell the centuries-old British universities that they're too Islamist. Truly, there's a concerted push to just completely deprecate Europe and leave Europe behind. And the future is not in Europe. This is what every single part of the world is saying right now, is that the future is not in Europe. Europe is turning itself into a hollowed out husk of a civilization. This is the extent to which this penetrates is sort of like it's just going out in a circle around the European area. So different parts of Europe are at different stages, but it is, I don't know, man, it's getting rough. And it doesn't make me happy. I mean, yeah, we like to mog, we like to do our jingoism and all of that. But this is also the land of our ancestors. So, like, I don't want to see it turn into an absolute shithole. But apparently it has to get worse there before it can get better. I don't think that getting worse makes things better, but I don't see a path forward as of right now, barring being explicitly colonized by the United States as subservient powers. That's the only path I see toward them being able to reverse the slide in any sort of way. Other than that, maybe it's just like everything else gets so much better that it naturally pulls it back up or something. But man, Japan got nuked twice and recovered rather quickly. Europe looks like they've taken like 20,000 nukes to the continent and the immediate surrounding area. It is rough, man. They're getting mogged they're getting mogged by their old colonies now. I think things are much less pointedly rhetorically heavy behind the scenes. I think a lot of this is posturing, but you've got the frickin' UAE saying, "Hey, Europe, you've got an Islam problem." The UAE is posturing itself as a more secular state than the UK. You guys have an Islam problem. So we're going to deprive you of our children. We're going to deprive you of our up-and-coming future. And that's what that means, like, in effect and symbolically, is we're not going to intermingle our children with your children anymore. You're a problem. You're embarrassing to be around. That is rough. That is a rough state to be in. But I think one thing that has to happen is that the Europeans themselves have to recognize the state that they're in. That they, as a civilization right now, they're like they're like an over-the-hill NFL quarterback that needs to retire. Just has to recognize that I just don't got it anymore. Now, what does retirement mean for them? I mean, I think it means becoming a subordinate power explicitly and not constantly grinding under that. Just recognizing your station now. But that's hard because you're going against really deep ethnic pride that is rooted in for generations, dozens of generations, hundreds of generations even. So that's like, yeah, there is what is it, the unstoppable force running into the immovable object? On the bright side, look at this absolute patriot, John Doyle. I mean, John Doyle is an absolute patriot himself. John Goyle. I think John Goyle is pretty funny. But yeah, I think you should just embrace it. Holy patriot, he says. This guy, 79-year-old British multimillionaire, Sir Benjamin Slade, is seeking a young woman to have a son to inherit his fortune and continue his lineage. This is a this is both kind of heartening and tragic at the same time. Like, hey, at least that spirit is still there. But also, it's like that spirit is there in such limited state that it's restricted to a 79-year-old multimillionaire who's desperately trying to have a kid really quick before he dies. So he has something to pass on. So there's a really deep tragedy in this. This is almost like the most European thing right now. By European, I mean I'm including the British Isles. This is the most old world story right now. But here's his list of demands. He's advertised in newspapers, joined Tinder, and tried reality TV. But he has strict requirements for the lucky lady. Must be a good breeder, be at least 20 years younger. Now, I don't know if this is a typo. At least 20 years old? At least 20 years younger would be 59. So if he's like trying to have... Anyways. No Scottish women. Must be able to have sons. He wants 2. An heir and a spare. No communists or lesbians. No drug users or heavy drinkers. No Scorpios. Needs a shotgun and driving license. Helicopter license a bonus. Able to manage a 1,300-acre estate and 2 castles. Ideally over 5'6". No, this is the best one. You might have thought you heard the best one so far. This is the best one. No women from countries beginning with I or with green in their flag. Beginning with I or with green in their flag. Ireland, India, Israel, Indonesia. Yeah, this is like those fat girls on Tinder with unrealistic expectations. Yeah, right. No, Iceland, yeah. No Italians. Well, the Italians, you have the green as well. Man. This guy. No Scorpios. In the middle of all of this, he's got to get his... Well, you know what they say? They say with it's millionaires. Is it millionaires do horoscopes and billionaires use astrology? Or it's that only billionaires use astrology. So, yeah. Guy knows what he wants. What did my wife say? Sorry, Matthew, the grass is greener elsewhere and I could bear sons. You have proven that. Look at this. Spanish Caudillo Francisco Franco presents the Grand Cross of the Order of Isabella the Catholic to Saddam Hussein, then vice president and de facto ruler of Iraq, in Madrid in 1974. Look at that. I think this might be the first color picture of Franco that I've ever seen. Look at that young, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed Saddam Hussein. It's kind of crazy how much he and Maduro look alike. Big, tall, kind of thick brows with the big mustache. Kind of got that brow overhang with a rather large nose. Pretty wild. Some kind of interesting anecdotes in here. Members of the Westboro Baptist Church did travel to Iraq in the late 1990s to preach and protest. And their founder, Fred Phelps, praised Saddam Hussein in a 1997 letter. In November of 1997, Phelps, the founder of the Westboro Baptist Church, wrote to Saddam Hussein praising Iraq as, quote, the only Muslim state that allows the gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ to be freely and openly preached on the streets without fear of arrest and prosecution. He contrasted this with the U.S., which he claimed repressed such preaching due to militant sodomites influencing policy, and blamed U.S. sanctions for Iraqi suffering. You know, maybe I didn't give Westboro Baptist Church a chance. Militant sodomites influencing American policy. Phelps requested permission to send a delegation to Baghdad to preach for a week. Saddam granted permission, and a small group from WBC traveled to Iraq, specifically Baghdad, to preach their message and protest U.S. policies, including condemning Bill and Hillary Clinton. This visit occurred before the 2003 Iraq War, during tensions over sanctions. That's what started the war, apparently, was the Westboro Baptist Church going to Iraq. Yeah, horseshoe theory, yeah. Saddam Hussein, while in U.S. custody shortly before his execution in December of 2006, requested to watch Mel Gibson's film The Passion of the Christ. According to accounts from American soldiers guarding him, as detailed in a 2017 Newsweek article, based on interviews in the book The Prisoner in His Palace by William Bardenwerper, Saddam reacted strongly after viewing it. He expressed anger at how the Jewish characters in the film treated Jesus, stating that Iraqis would have treated him better. He also reportedly called it the best movie he had ever seen. Guys, did we lose a patriot? Did I spend so much of my life believing that this absolute patriot was some sort of great degenerate villain? Are we going to restore the legacy of Saddam Hussein? I could hear a case made. I'm open to this. I'm shattering a lot of sacred cows. That one seems like it's not that big of a deal. Let's hear it. Former Nicolas Maduro security guard delivers a first-hand account of the advanced technology used in the U.S. raid in Venezuela. Now, I don't know. Take this for what it's worth. You know, it could be real, could be not. You know, it sounds real-ish. Sounds pretty accurate to me. But the state-of-the-art drones, massive firepower, but the direct energy weapons were the most terrifying. 20 elite American soldiers armed with cutting-edge technology dismantled defenses and neutralized hundreds without a single casualty on their side. This isn't just a story of victory, it's a masterclass in modern warfare supremacy. The Americans arrived undetected, advanced electronic warfare systems completely disabled Venezuelan radars and other equipment. Here is the description.
A security guard that was protecting Maduro has spoken, and you got to hear what he said. It's in Spanish, but I'll translate. Also, Trump announced that, the cartels, they're going after him in Mexico. The whole vibe of Latin America has changed because of what happened in Venezuela. And now that we're getting firsthand accounts from people that were there, the soldier says they didn't hear him coming. He says the Americans had technology superior to anything they've ever seen. Everything that they were using for radar, for anything, was completely taken offline. They had drones, and the drones were taking out bases and taking out things faster. They didn't have no technology. They've never had to fight against drones. He also talks about that there was only 8 helicopters. There was only 20 men that were sent in, and those 20 men killed hundreds of their men, and none of those soldiers were injured. He talks about it felt like they were firing 300 rounds a minute. Nothing they've ever seen, nothing that they can compete with. And then he also talks to the fact that the Americans had some kind of sonic shock boom that was sent out, and everybody immediately started bleeding profusely out of their nose. They couldn't even gather themselves because whatever was sent at them made them fall to their knees and vomit blood out of their mouth and out of their noses. They were incapacitated immediately. He says he never wants to go through that again. Doesn't want to have to fight with the Americans again. He's sending warnings to everybody out there that you think you can fight the Americans. You don't even know what their weaponry is like and what they're capable of. 20 men took out hundreds, and that's starting to spread all through Latin America. And now they're not saying, if you want me, come and get me anymore. They're like, oh shit. Especially after Trump says, hey, Mexico, you're on the list too.
Which Trump did say yesterday. Now, this, I want to believe every single thing here is true. And I don't disbelieve that it's true. This sounds really fucking cool, man. This sounds really, really fucking cool. This sounds exactly like what it would sound like if, imagine, think of like an African who fights with spears and bows and arrows. And he encounters firearms for the first time. And he's like, oh, there was just these extremely loud sounds that were super disorienting, and these invisible things just started hitting us from all different directions and just shredding people open and just leaving holes run through you. It was totally, that's kind of what this sounds like. This sounds like what you would get if you encountered some sort of an elite fighting force that had previously unknown weaponry in their tow. This sounds like the Havana syndrome thing that they've talked about at different U.S. bases, where people get this thing that it's a directed energy weapon that causes them to like get dizzy and nauseated, which is completely plausible. You could probably make something like this relatively easily if you were sort of like a shade tree inventor. You could come up with a way to wield electricity in some way to do this. So it's not implausible that these sorts of weapons exist. I would also say that it's a very prominent narrative within just the common mainstream discussion that the United States military is kind of a has-been. It's sort of like our whole industrial base has fallen apart, and a lot of our equipment is getting old, and it's not that great. It's not super cutting edge. We have a hard time producing enough of it. All that sort of thing. That has been a narrative for a long time now. And I can tell you that there are plenty of military interests within the United States who do not want that to be the case. There is an extraordinary amount of money and influence that exists behind maintaining the notion that that is the case. So if that was the case, because there are legitimate structural things that cause the, like the hollowing out of American industry, yes, this is a national security threat. The ability to produce, to scale up, and like we were producing like a ship a day or whatever, 2 ships a day or something absurd during World War II. We've had this capacity in the past, and we're way, way back from it now. All the supply chains have been sprawled out all over the place, and we don't control a lot of our key resources and minerals and such. So it would totally stand to reason to me that there would have been a concerted effort among those sorts of interests to do whatever they could to rapidly build up a military capacity if they needed to. And if they already did, then they would just be enhancing it behind the scenes. If you are operating on resource constraints, you can't justify, you don't have the resource capacity to backstop some sort of major pronounced physical conflict. The other option would be you order your military power around both a strong diplomatic strategy, collaboratively with the financial apparatus and the diplomatic corps and the leadership of the military, having a strong diplomatic position in depth negotiating, while having elite strike forces that can go in and do single operations like this that totally change the state of play. If they did have that capacity, this is exactly how you would go about it. You would take Venezuela with the role that Venezuela plays, and you would go in and you would do this demonstration of capacity against them, knocking them off. And if some of this is because, this wasn't all because we have these really super awesome tools where we could shut down the radar and everything. This was, there was a remote kill switch from the Chinese, or there was some sort of diplomatic stand down negotiated ahead of time. That doesn't change the facts on the ground. That's just a different type of military technology. Your ability to successfully negotiate behind closed doors like that, and to work out something where these 3 different massive powers with cross-competing interests can land on some sort of an agreement. Whether the radars things were shut down because of this diplomatic capacity, or whether they were shut down because of actual technical capacity, I think is neither here nor there. In either case, it's a massive strategic military victory. Just like it's better to get people to self-deport than to have to physically deport them, it makes you a much more effective military if you can succeed militarily through with the greatest, like disproportionately through diplomacy. So, I don't care whether this was a consequence of, they had some pretty cool tools, but then also they had help on the inside. That's all part of the same operation. They executed the operation. and had the effect that they did. So how does the next nation not know that there's also some sort of diplomatic thing going on behind the scenes that they don't know about? And all of a sudden they can't rely on anyone or trust anyone around them. And then you start getting rumors like this going around, even if this sort of weaponry didn't exist, which I think it obviously exists, and obviously would be deployed in a strategic capacity like this. I don't see any reason to question the story. Though I know a lot of people will because they're not hearing it from like CNN or whatever. But even if that didn't happen, you know what else is really a terrific strategic deployment of military is to be able to spread the narrative that that's what happened. This is an ancient human technique. You have the people who go ahead of the emperor and they proclaim the great warlord and they proclaim all of his stupendous, awesome, brutal conquests and exploits and tell you, when he gets here, you should just lay down in front of him. You really shouldn't fight him because if you fight him, the gods are on his side and he's going to do things to you that have never been done before. So it'd be good if you just that makes your military even more effective. You're punching above your weight militarily. So obviously being able to go into Venezuela and just scoop up the president and go home with him, just collect your El Presidente and head home, and leave all of this everyone's just stunned behind it, that doesn't necessarily translate to, we're going to go, kidnap Xi Jinping or something. But it also makes the story of kidnapping Xi Jinping a lot more credible than it did before. So, now the question isn't can the United States do this, it's where can the United States do this? Which is a very, very different sort of conversation to have. And I think this is why, right after this happened, a whole bunch of shit is kicking off. Everybody's starting to reorganize themselves. One other interesting consequence of the Maduro indictment, I've seen people who are like, I haven't even seen it. I've seen people talking about people who are discussing the terms of like the court case and stuff. And I'm like, what has happened to you? Why how are you looking at this now? And you're like, well, actually, I don't know. Do you think they're going to be able to fully prosecute that case against him? Or do you think the jury's going to be rigged? Did you take retard pills or something? How do you think that matters? They didn't bring him here so that they could successfully prosecute him. They brought him here so they can get information out of him, so that they can use his prosecution as a political platform. Then maybe they flip him. Maybe they've already flipped him. Who cares what they're charging him with? Fucking charge him with jaywalking. I don't give a shit.
The white man
Wait!
is back.
I won this for 3rd place in a fantasy league. And it only felt right giving it to you after I won the King Pilled Fantasy League. Champion bitches. Gents, pay your favorite streamer. He needs another era 2 or 3. Much love.
Thank you, Wit, you patriot. You are the champion. You may have noticed that I stopped talking about the King Pilled Fantasy Football League pretty quick into the season because things went sideways real fast. The Joe Burrow injury just decimated me, and then everything just went downhill from there. Fortunately, it is a dynasty league, so I'm making plans for next year. We'll see how much turnover we have with that, and if there's anybody else who if we have open spots, I'll announce it here, and any of you guys can come join us. It's a lot of fun. Thank you, Whit. I appreciate you, man. So yeah, like the actual, I don't care what you charge Maduro with. Charge him with whatever you want. It doesn't matter. I mean, you should keep him alive. I think that's important. I think it'd be really good to keep him alive. If he was to be assassinated, that's not necessarily like the worst thing in the world. It's just a new thing, but it would probably not be good to have him get assassinated. So keep him alive. That's important. But the terms of where the court case is happening, and all of this stuff is all incidental. Doesn't matter. But here's one thing: the mere act of indicting him has accomplished. The Trump administration now has the Maduro indictment to support their Alien Enemies Act claims. This is what they said. Appellees respectfully submit this letter pursuant to Federal Rule of Appellate Procedure to advise the court of an indictment against co-conspirators Nicolas Maduro, the leader of Tren de Aragua, Hector Rusenford Guerrero Flores, and several of Maduro's family members and high-ranking officials. Among other charges, Maduro and his high-ranking officials are alleged to have worked directly with several narco-terrorist organizations to funnel deadly drugs into the United States, including TDA, which controls a criminal network able to assist with the transportation of cocaine within Venezuela and on the Venezuelan coast. And obviously, the drugs here, the drugs are just a proxy for the trafficking networks. The trafficking networks, which gets into intel operations and human trafficking and money laundering and all these sorts of things. The drugs are just a cover for that. Like, the drugs are the thing that was one of the first things that was used to open up these different transaction lanes. So they are drug networks because they began through drug traffickers, but then they built all these other industries in and around them. The indictment reinforces the proclamation's findings that the Maduro regime and TDA have formed a hybrid criminal state directed by the regime. This significant development further refutes petitioners' argument that the government no longer treats TDA as entwined with the Maduro regime. Indeed, in announcing the apprehension and indictment of Maduro, the president made clear that Maduro has, quote, waged a ceaseless campaign of violence, terror, and subversion against the United States of America, threatening not only our people, but the stability of the entire region, end quote. In particular, quote, Maduro sent savage and murderous gangs, including the bloodthirsty prison gang Tren de Aragua, to terrorize American communities nationwide through murder and taking over apartment complexes. The president emphasized that Tren de Aragua was sent by Maduro to terrorize our people, providing examples of Americans victimized by their terror campaign. These new developments underscore the Maduro regime's control over TDA and TDA's violent invasion or predatory incursion on American soil. As a result, it is even clearer that the president's invocation of the Alien Enemies Act was part of a high-level national security mission that exists outside the realm of judicial interference. This is submitted by the Assistant Attorney General, Brett Shumate, and counsel to the Assistant Attorney General, Tiberius Davis. There's a name for you. Tiberius T. Davis. Also Drew Ensign, Anthony Nicastro, and John Blakely. Yeah, you wanna preserve the use of the Alien Enemies Act and stuff that's downstream from that, as well as maintain your justification for invoking the Insurrection Act if and when it's necessary. Having an active prosecution or having an active indictment of Nicolas Maduro is very useful toward that end. Okay, got a thing here from Tom Luongo from the New York Fed. Here is the list of the 43 banks who have access to the Fed's standing repo facility. Notice anything? And I'm just gonna shout out the ones that he bolded here. Banco Popular de Puerto Rico, Banco Santander, New York branch, Barclays, New York branch, BMO, Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce, New York branch, Credit Agricole Corporate and Investment Bank, HSBC Bank USA, Natixis New York branch, Royal Bank of Canada, Three World Financial Center branch. Those bolded are non-US or non-Japanese banks who have access. The Fed doesn't publish the names of the banks that use the standing repo facility, just the amount borrowed through the facility. So when the standing repo facility is used, all you're going to get is the amount that was borrowed through the facility. You're not going to get a breakdown of who borrowed what. I published this here to remind everyone that 9 out of the 43 banks on the list have direct international ties to countries who are right now, today, very angry with the US, primarily the UK, France, and Canada. Then there are at least 4 Japanese banks. When someone wants to scare you with, ZOMG, the big banks borrowed umpty gazillion dollars from the Fed, here's a lighter for your hair, the first thing everyone thinks is JP Morgan or Bank of America is in trouble. Well, maybe or maybe not. There are a lot of massive banks on this list, many of whom are shitting bricks this morning with Nicolas Maduro in U.S. custody because they are intimately involved in the Venezuelan story. Expect there to be a banking crisis soon as one or more of these banks get into trouble and have to borrow at the SRF rate to get the dollars they need. If Trump continues true to current form, the next Fed chair will cancel or not honor U.S. dollar swap lines from any foreign central bank we know to be involved in these games. There will be selling of U.S. treasuries as well to raise cash and keep banks liquid. Because if they can't go get these dollars here, then they're going to sell U.S. treasuries to get those dollars. Watch the Smartmatic Dominion angle on Venezuela carefully. Countries like France and the UK now know the flow of dollars is going away. Expect changes to the SRF policy rates as well as the foreign repo facility rate in the future, i.e., to be held above the Fed funds. So, in other words, the offshore dollars are going to be more expensive to access. The canary is singing in New York. Just down the road, a lot of folks are trying to figure out how to keep the grift going and what it's going to cost to do so. The main point here is don't always assume a one-to-one correlation between SRF usage and problems with major U.S. money center banks. It's an assumption, and depending on how loud and coordinated the cries are will be a tell as to who was actually doing the financial walk of shame. So when they quote the repo usage, when they quote those numbers to you, you don't know which banks are actually comprising those amounts that are taking those loans. So it could be disproportionately these international banks, as both as a means of explicitly creating that storyline to damage people's trust in the U.S. banking system, but also because they genuinely do need access to that liquidity. This is the rub about the Eurodollar system. As they have constructed the Eurodollar system, set up initially to hollow out the United States, to take control of the pricing of our own currency and give it out cheaper to everyone else than it is to us, to encourage industry to flee our borders, to hollow us out. That's why the Eurodollar system was created. But because it has been created, that also means everyone has now tied themselves into the dollar system. So if America decides to take control of the dollar system and start making it more expensive for certain people, certain countries, certain institutions, suddenly they have them by the balls. Because they've built their entire empire as derivative functions of that connection to the dollar. They've built their entire empire on the dollar. And now we're saying that dollar is ours. We get to decide how much it is, and we get to decide how much of it you get to have. Suddenly, we get to dictate the value of your entire financial empire. This is the big battle. Everything else is downstream of this. They say follow the money for a reason. This is why Scott Bessent is perhaps the most important person in the administration, because he gets this. Trump gets this on like an intuitive level. Bessent gets this on a plumbing level. So there's going to be a banking crisis, I'm sure. I think Tom's right. There's going to be a banking crisis. And it's going to be sold as this is U.S. banks failing. And maybe it's because there's so much turmoil. This is part of the reason why maybe you don't want to invoke the Insurrection Act. Because that gives some very easy headlines. Like Trump's so unpopular, his agenda is so unpopular, that he's now having to deploy the military into the streets just to enforce his will on people as the banking system collapses and everyone starts selling out of American debt. That creates a major, major geopolitical issue. So all these fucking like people who are on the verge of trooning out over the fact that Trump is not moving fast enough with the Insurrection Act, they don't understand these mechanics going on behind the scenes. This is like dumb nerd stuff or whatever, but it's literally the fucking money. You solve the money problem, and everything else flows downstream from that. When they built the overseas empire through the expansion of the US dollar, they created the potentially fatal chink in their armor, which was if the United States was to re-engineer control of the dollar, they would literally own the global market and get to dictate terms upon the global market. This is the, you might say, like the privatization of the market. This is the Americanization of the market. The market was built on America's back, and now America is going to own it and is going to charge you a fee to have access to it. And if you want to get a big dick with us, then we're going to make your nose bleed. We're going to give you the ouchie head. No wonder all the non-Americans are getting squeamish. This one dropped just before I went live here. Donald Trump, my president, my anti-usury president, says, please be informed that we will no longer let the American public be ripped off by credit card companies that are charging interest rates of 20 to 30% and even more, which festered unimpeded during the Sleepy Joe Biden administration. Affordability. Effective January 20, 2026, I, as President of the United States, am calling for a one-year cap on credit card interest rates of 10%. Coincidentally, the January 20th date will coincide with the one-year anniversary of the historic and very successful Trump administration. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Make America great again. President Donald J. Trump. And
white males way up. White males have gone through the roof. White males way up.
And there's this show, King Pilled. They call it King Pilled. Absolutely incredible show. One of the best I've ever seen.
So true, Mr. President. It's not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence. The rise of King Pilled and the fact that white men are way up. Look at this now. My president's taking on the bankers. He's taking on the usurers on our behalf. Now, unfortunately, as president, he does not technically have the authority to unilaterally dictate this by fiat. Like, he cannot just declare this to be the case. Or he can. You know, this is a test of power. He says, I want Congress to make this into law. And then we'll find out, can he force Congress to put this into law? The more things that he can force Congress to do, the better. And so picking these big populist issues as the things where he's like, I'm going to force Congress to bend the knee on this, there's some strategery going on here. So yeah, like the downstream effects of clamping credit card rates to 10%, like there's all sorts of nuance that could be had in here. There can be, you know, is this going forward? Is this for all newly issued rates or rates on newly issued cards? Is this retrospective? Is it retrospective to what point? Is it retrospective for what kind of card? This is a contraction of the American consumer credit market. This would be an executively mandated contraction of the consumer credit market. But by and large, I think probably the credit card consumer debt is probably, as a matter of composition, less productive than other forms of consumer debt. So if he's expanding other forms of consumer debt while he's contracting, like if he's expanding productive forms of consumer debt, like small banking loans and that sort of thing, but he's also contracting non-productive consumer debt, then you're going to get some turmoil, but you could probably get like a kind of a gradual phased in transition from one to the other. And there's a whole lot of policy tools that can be pulled on to make this effectively so, even if you can't get the like sword through the Gordian knot, having Congress just declare it so. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. But one of our great, what do we call this? The Patriot AI slop. Sightbringer, I read a couple of these yesterday. Another banger. He says he's testing executive monetary sovereignty. This is about demonstrating that pricing power, long confined to the Fed and capital markets, can now be seized directly by the presidency. And this is what I'm saying. This is a test of his executive power. Can he declare these things to be so and sufficiently will them to be so? It's an interesting thing to do, because if you fail the test, you're almost worse than if you'd never done the test in the first place. So it's a confident move. Trump is asserting that the White House can dictate interest rates in specific sectors without waiting for Powell or consensus. He's showing that he can break the old monetary covenant without needing to rewrite the whole system. Just puncture it where it's weakest, consumer credit. The 10% cap is a weapon. It doesn't need to work perfectly. It needs to humiliate the old priesthood. It needs to show that the Fed doesn't own rates anymore. The markets don't even get the final word. This is regime assertion through financial disruption. It's a warning shot to the banks. Your profit margins are subject to sovereign override. It's a signal to the public. Your pain is noticed and can be arbitrarily alleviated. You can just do things. Your profit margins, banks, are subject to sovereign override. And to the public, you can just do things. I can solve your problems. I can fix your pain. A man who can successfully navigate both of these worlds is emperor. That is the definition of an emperor, is the man who can successfully exert power on these other powerful factions while amassing populist appeal. It's a declaration to the Fed. Your monopoly on rate setting is over. Once rate ceilings are normalized in credit cards, the moral frame is in place. Every rate becomes contestable. Mortgages, student loans, car leases, eventually T-bills. This is how executive power slowly replaces monetary independence. Behind the populist tone is a deeper logic. Re-centralization of price authority under the regime itself. He isn't just capping interest, he's fracturing the illusion that money is above politics. That's the signal. That is a banger. And it's because of bangers like this that I will continue reading my Patriot AI slop and bringing it here to you guys. There is the link to that one. And I gotta reemphasize this. All of the other, the people who have this like Netflixification of political expectations problem, who think that political parties are like Chipotle or something, and you can just go and you just place your order and you get what you want. All of the other things that you really, really want, the really big moves, the like deploying the military and just scooping up people and funneling them into large planes that are just flying routes, just dumping people like crazy. Those sorts of really, really big moves that you want, those are only possible for a president who has successfully asserted himself as the prime executive. So even if something like capping credit card rates isn't like directionally exactly the same thing, you can't just look at it for the exact impact of that one move in that one domain. You got to consider the externalities from it. So when you see Trump focus on things like so-called foreign policy or negotiating trade deals or like all these different things, they're all connected.
But Matt, the free market.
Yes, Slosher, we have successfully enraged any libertarian who may be listening to this. There's a couple of you guys out there. I see you. I see your comments that you leave. Your libertarian brain bleeding through. Especially if some of these get made into like the YouTube shorts. When Substack just crops one out, it says, here's a pre-made YouTube short for you. Then I just upload it. I'm not going in. I don't have time to go in and edit them all myself. Which reminds me, actually, if you're watching on Kick, you might notice that there is a clip button up at the top. And I'm not sure exactly how it works, but I know a few people have used it. So if you want to play around with that and make clips as they go, they'll just get posted to the channel. There's some that are on the channel already. I didn't do those. I didn't even know that could be done. I saw people put them up there. So that's something that you could play around with and see if you can make some. And if anybody wanted to make a clips channel, and just I suppose it might be kind of hard to monetize a clips channel with the sort of stuff that I talk about, but you're more than happy to. It would be a great service to me, so I'm more than happy. If you want to create one and manage it and run it, and if you generate revenue or anything through it, then I don't care. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about, what do I got here? I got some stuff about fraud, about Minnesota, Somalians, fraud. John Rocker. John Rocker shows up at a daycare looking for kids and being racist while he does it. John Rocker, the absolute patriot.
All right, you want to go with that instead of...
Hello? Housekeeping? I got meat for pillow. Door shithead. This door's bulletproof. Probably getting ready to find out. Actually, they can't chunk a spear through this thing, can they? See, I should have said that. I should have said that right there.
And again, with the rats on.
He said they couldn't chuck a spear through this thing, could they?
Locks are brand new, though.
Teachers want it. You should say you're here for the teacher's job.
John Rocker, one of our most notorious public racists for a very long time now. What was the... Yeah, Dissident Soap said, think this door's bulletproof? Think they could chuck a spear through this thing? What a legend. What a legend indeed. Tim Walz is going to be pissed. Looks like Commander Bovino has taken over the Minnesota State Capitol here in St. Paul. I know we got some Gregory Bovino appreciators out there, so here's one for you guys.
Can we say breaking news? Commander Bovino has taken control of the Minnesota State Capitol.
That guy is living one of the best lives in the country right now. He just gets to walk around mogging libs all the time, absolutely dripped out. And then periodically they bring him on to interview him, and he does his best Stephen Miller impression. He's like Stephen Miller meets Tom Homan, just mogging his way through all of these stupid libtards who are talking to him about immigration. He's like, yeah, no, if you're brown, you're going home. My whole job is buying energy drinks, dapping up the common man on the street, and deporting brown people. And you can suck it. This one's from a few days ago. Interstate Juche. This one caught my attention. WAPO is calling for entitlement reform. Yes, WAPO is calling for entitlement reform. It might actually be over for Dems. Look at this. Washington Post calls for stricter SNAP qualifications and a widespread fraud crackdown after the Minnesota scandal. This is from the Washington Post editorial board. Food stamps should help the hungry and only the hungry. Amid Minnesota fraud scandal, Democratic governors are refusing to share SNAP details with the feds. Minnesota's Somali fraud saga. This is from December 31st. So 10 days ago. Minnesota's Somali fraud saga finally pierced the national consciousness this week after conservative YouTuber Nick Shirley. By the way, Nick Shirley, interestingly, I thought I recognized him when I saw him. I played some clips last year of him in Greenland. When the story about Greenland first came up, Nick Shirley went to Greenland and was like interviewing people and talking to them about the possibility of the United States taking Greenland. And then, what do you know? He shows up in Minnesota too. This is this Nick Shirley character. Very interesting fellow. Nick Shirley released a video purporting to show daycare centers receiving public funds without taking care of children, including one with a sign identifying it as a quality learning center. The facilities deny wrongdoing, and state officials say they have questions about some of the methods used in the video, but take fraud very seriously. That spirit of scrupulousness would have been nice a few billion tax dollars ago. 14 of the state's Medicaid, this is WAPO, 14 of the state's Medicaid programs, which received $18 billion in federal funds since 2018, have been flagged for significant fraud problems. Minnesota's top federal prosecutor says the total fraud could be over $9 billion. Across the country, Medicaid lost an estimated $31 billion this way in fiscal year 2024. $31 billion across the country for Medicaid, officially, on the record, acknowledged, publicly admitted. $31 billion lost to fraud. That's like, people say lost. It wasn't lost. It was just redirected. It went somewhere else. Who knows where? I have some ideas. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz has called for prosecuting the scammers and committed to an outside audit of high-risk programs. But why were these welfare programs so at risk of being defrauded in the first place? As America's welfare state has ballooned to more than 80 major federal programs, they've become a target-rich environment for alleged scam artists like those in Minneapolis. Walz's boondoggle, WAPO is calling it Walz's boondoggle, underlines the need for serious reforms across America. Tim Walz is fucked, man. Too bad that too many progressive leaders are lackadaisical at best about cracking down on fraud and errors, lest it curtail social services. That's especially true when it comes to open-ended entitlement programs such as the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. Programs like SNAP create, quote, a financial incentive for states really not to be as vigilant as they should be in preventing fraud abuse. According to Matt Whitinger, a senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. In an effort to root out waste and fraud, the Trump administration threatened to cut off SNAP funding from states that won't share data about the program's recipients. Over a dozen Democratic states have sued to block the request for sensitive data, which includes immigration status, and it's still unclear whether the administration can legally cut off the funding. More on that in a minute. The blue states won a preliminary injunction in October to temporarily block the request. Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey says President Donald Trump is, quote, playing politics with the ability of working parents with children, seniors, and people with disabilities to get food. The bitch. The truth is that SNAP doesn't just help the hungry. It had the fourth highest rate of documented fraud across all federal programs from 2018 to 2022, coming in at $10.5 billion. Massachusetts had a 14% error rate on SNAP payments in fiscal year 2024, the seventh highest in the country. Across every state, overpayments represented a larger share of the error rate than underpayments. The tax bill passed in July requires states with an error rate over 6% to pay for up to 15% of the costs of benefits come 2028. So, if they have an error rate above 6%, then starting in 2028, they are going to have to foot the bill for 15% of the costs of those federal programs. The Congressional Budget Office estimates that 300,000 people could lose access to food stamps as a result. The left claims Trump wants Americans to go hungry, but if an individual shouldn't be eligible for food stamps in the first place, where's the cruelty in making sure benefits go to someone who is? Here's the overpayments account for most of SNAP's payment error. States with an error rate over 6% will have to pay up for 15%. So Alaska has the largest percentage of overpayment. D.C., Georgia, Florida, New Mexico, New Jersey, Massachusetts, New York, Oregon, Maryland, Delaware, Rhode Island, Illinois, Virginia, California, the national average is 10.9%. What are the lowest? South Dakota, Idaho, Wisconsin, Wyoming, Vermont, Nebraska, Utah, Nevada, Washington, Iowa, Louisiana, Hawaii. Okay, so I notice a trend down here. I notice a trend starting from South Dakota all the way up here. I mean, Nevada, yeah, Washington, yeah, but there's a very white pattern there. From Massachusetts to Minnesota, states clearly need to do better jobs of vetting welfare beneficiaries. The Trump administration also has an opportunity to press for meaningful reform. It would be a mistake to squander it by using waste and fraud as an excuse to make inefficient cuts or to use beneficiary data to fuel a mass deportation crusade. On Tuesday night, the administration cited Shirley's video, whose findings remain disputed, as a rationale to freeze all child care payments in the state of Minnesota. Fully eliminating that safety net will hurt more than just fraudsters. The federal government should instead champion reforms. Here you get the WAPO. Champion reforms that incentivize more responsible spending, such as block grants. By offering a fixed amount of funding, Washington could encourage states to spend more carefully and vet recipients more thoroughly. Social safety nets crumble when most taxpayers feel like welfare money goes to undeserving people. The purpose of entitlements is not to spend as much as possible, it's to make sure the truly vulnerable get the help they need without becoming dependent on government handouts. Scrutinizing food stamp rolls is a small step in that direction. Then today, 'Twas announced, Secretary Brooke Rollins says, enough is enough. The Trump administration has uncovered massive fraud in Minnesota and Minneapolis, billions siphoned off by fraudsters. And those in charge have zero plan to fix it. So today, USDA is suspending federal financial awards to Minnesota and Minneapolis, effective immediately, until sufficient proof has been provided that the fraud has stopped. No more handouts to thieves. Time to drain the Minnesota swamp and put American taxpayers first. This is what she says. Dear Governor Walz and Mayor Frey, so this is the governor of Minnesota and the mayor of Minneapolis, it is my responsibility as Secretary of Agriculture to ensure sound stewardship of taxpayer dollars by eliminating fraud, waste, and abuse in all programs funded by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. The widespread and systemic fraud associated with the federal benefit programs in the state of Minnesota and the city of Minneapolis demonstrate an inability to handle federal resources without additional oversight and accountability measures in place. During your tenures as governor of Minnesota and mayor of Minneapolis, numerous nonprofits and businesses have defrauded the federal government in what a federal prosecutor in Minnesota called a staggering industrial-scale fraud. Most notably, a Minneapolis-based nonprofit, Feeding Our Future, defrauded U.S. taxpayers of nearly $250 million in federal funds given to them by the Minnesota Department of Education. This fraud scheme involved USDA funding provided to the state of Minnesota to feed hungry children under the Child and Adult Care Food Program and the Summer Food Service Program. As of late November, 78 defendants have been charged in what the DOJ characterized as the largest COVID-19 fraud scheme in the country. Other recent examples of alleged fraud in Minnesota include exploitation of the Small Business Administration Paycheck Protection Program, a scheme to defraud the Housing Stabilization Services Program, and alleged fraud in daycare centers. Your administrations have refused additional accountability and oversight, claiming that criticism of rampant fraud and abuse is racist. While the full extent of fraud in Minnesota is not yet known, it is clear that under your leadership, or lack thereof, fraudsters can take advantage of federal funds and the American taxpayer with impunity. This necessitates federal action to protect taxpayer dollars until adequate safeguards can be established. Despite a staggering, wide-reaching fraud scandal, your administrations refuse to provide basic information or take common-sense measures to stop fraud. In fact, rather than confirm your SNAP rolls are accurate to prevent continuing fraud, you ask the courts to block USDA's directive to recertify the state's SNAP recipients. Recent news reports also emerged that the Minnesota Department of Human Services repeatedly reported incorrect information about SNAP to the federal government. The Trump administration refuses to allow such fraud to continue. Therefore, now it's time for your spanking. Because of your failed leadership and abysmal financial management oversight, I am notifying you that effective immediately, I am suspending payments on all active awards and any future awards from USDA to the state of Minnesota and the city of Minneapolis, currently totaling over $129.18 million. Within 30 days, you shall provide USDA with payment justifications for all federal dollar expenditures from January 20, 2025 to the present. Going forward, all transactions on awards to the state of Minnesota or the city of Minneapolis will require such payment justification. If those payment justifications are not received, awards will remain suspended. While your administrations have turned a blind eye to documented fraud, the Trump administration has made clear that fraud, waste, and abuse are unacceptable. The American people deserve to know that their taxpayer dollars are helping those in need, not criminals. I look forward to your defense of government spending, making certain any federal dollars are spent with integrity. Sincerely, Brooke Rollins, Secretary of Agriculture. So, the city of Minneapolis and the state of Minnesota want to talk about being at war with the federal government, and the federal government said, okay, then you don't get these monies anymore. And you can come back, you can grovel, you can bend the knee, you can subject yourself, and we'll decide if we want to turn the money spigot back on again. Now, $130 million or something is not that much, but that's going to get somebody start hurting. Somebody's going to be real unhappy about this. Somebody's going to want to get this turned back on again. Once you get one implemented from, say, USDA, then you can get others implemented from other departments as well. So this is part of the war. There's the actual stuff happening on the streets, there's the rhetoric, and then there's the financial war behind the scenes. Speaking of fraud, there's a couple interesting things that, a couple interesting ways people have been crowdsourcing to deal with this problem of fraud. So first of all, you've got perhaps the most Jewish version. This is from Chamath Palihapitiya from the All In podcast. He says, I think this is the most asymmetric upside bet in the market now. Position yourself smartly, and you can make 10 to 1,000x with relative ease. How? Even if politicians try to bury the fraud, the bond market can't ignore it. Their math will show that even if the fraud is only 10% of total state municipal budgets, it's already way too much and should go to paying back debt holders. Right now, spreads don't reflect this and are too tight, i.e., look at California credit default swaps. It doesn't reflect any fraud, budget shortfalls, or the billionaire exodus. There is little chance that spreads don't move as the bond market comes back to work and processes the events of the last few days. Now, if instead of 10% fraud, they believe that fraud is 20 to 30% of all tax dollars, the cost of borrowing will escalate sharply until federal, state, and local governments are forced to act. This is when the CDS trade becomes the most asymmetric profit opportunity of our lifetime. Buy the CDS, wait for politicians to try and bury it, i.e. in California, see the bond market increase borrowing costs, see the CDS blow out, asymmetric bet pays off. The takeaway here is that the bond market lives in an alternative and adjacent universe from the politicians and media. The latter group can try to bury an issue, but when the former group is asked to fund it, a reckoning happens and the former group always wins. So there is your Jewish option. Then there's your there's your slanty eye option. I don't know if this guy's Chinese or what, but it just makes the joke funny.
We just found $250 million in fraudulent government spending over the past month. But that's nothing compared to nearly $500 billion that happen every year. And that's why we raised $5.1 million to start the Anti-Fraud Company, a private sector doge that saves your tax dollars from greedy corporations.
Even universities and pharmaceutical companies, entities we trust with their children's health and their education,
private sector doge,
are participants in what we call organized graft. And these aren't just one-off mistakes here or there. It's the system. And while they profit, you suffer the consequences. Higher prices, more debt, and less for the people who need it most.
At the FTC, I worked to stop Big Pharma from defrauding Medicare and Medicaid. And before that, I filed class action lawsuits against Big Pharma for delaying generic competition and raising consumer prices.
Found the
I
nerd.
spent years of my life researching and writing a book about how Ivy League institutions
His
fix
name's
prices,
Sharda.
raising costs for students and their debt burdens, and this launched multiple congressional investigations and billion-dollar class action lawsuits.
I emailed thousands of administrators at Brown University to ask them what they did in the past week and built an AI system to audit the university's budget. They tried to kick me out, but I ended up testifying before Congress about the Ivy League's antitrust violations, and they got subpoenaed.
We are going to use our legal and technical expertise to track down fraudsters, bring them to justice, and protect our government programs. We are the Anti-Fraud Company.
And we know now that government by organized money is just as dangerous as government by organized mob.
Very interesting. That is, you could teach so many different classes off of that ad. Just my marketing boys out there, Slutty Milk. I'm sure. I'm imagining someone doing like a mastermind class or something where they break down all the different techniques and everything that they're using. But one of them was basically just like racial stereotyping. Very well done. The Chinese guy says there's a way to make a 1,000x return on fraud prevention, but it's not through the bond market. The False Claims Act, qui tam, says anyone who uncovers fraud can sue the fraudster on behalf of the government and keep 15 to 30% of the recovery. On a $1 billion fraud, that's $150 million plus for a private whistleblower. My startup, Anti-Fraud Company, does this on a repeatable basis. We have some fixed costs, salaries, tech, and rent, but amortized over each case we file, we easily get a 1,000x return on investment. Anti-Fraud Company is essentially a decentralized private sector capitalist doge that has unparalleled margins and ROI while also doing social good. I think he's probably overselling. I mean, he's doing his job. He's selling his company. But it's a brilliant idea. Like, there's this baked-in thing that if you can report these whistleblow on these frauds, then you can get a portion of the what do you call it? The proceeds from the fraud recovery. So just build a business around that, around recruiting whistleblowers and facilitating the lawsuits and everything to get a cut of that. One thing that I would imagine is that a lot of those proceeds are like $1 billion fraud is probably not going to be $1 billion recovery. If it was $1 billion fraud, it's probably going to get settled at like a few hundred million recovery. So you're not going to get 150 million from something like that. I mean, you might still get 15 million, which excellent, great, still good, but pretty brilliant, I think. Mr. Sue sent this over to me from a friend of his who created this website. It is at the Luring Center, just totally fucked that up. Let me start this over again. It is, the URL for it is theluring.center. Theluring.center. Total stolen, $872 million. Stolen from programs meant to feed children, house the vulnerable, and help kids with autism. This is how much was stolen from those programs. Minnesota's largest fraud crisis in history. Look at this slick website. Adjust the slider to see how much this fraud cost your household. For the average Minnesota family, it's $84.79. For all Americans, it's $4.45 per household. So I got the little slider here. You can see how much the fraud cost your household. Then 3 programs, billions lost. Feeding Our Future was $250 million. Housing programs was $302 million. And autism services was $220 million. You can hover on each card to learn more about what was stolen. And the intended flow. So this is how it's supposed to work. And then here's how it actually worked, where they diverted the fraud off. And then here's all the different places that it went. Here's the network. You can click on any node to see, like here's fraud conspirators. And there's a list of all the key individuals who have been prosecuted so far. Luxury assets, daycare providers, the CCAP division, licensed daycare centers billing CCAP for children not in attendance, and it's all broken down here. Then who should have stopped it? Here's the flow of where the money, the hierarchies that the money went down through, and who would have been responsible for stopping it at each given part in the flow chain here. Broken oversight. 7 years of failure. Here's the timeline of it. What could have been. Here's what $872 million could have funded. And accountability thus far. How many have been convicted? How many have been charged? How much has been recovered? How many investigations there are? And then here's latest updates, news updates on it. And then you can dig deeper going through official documents, investigative reports, and analysis from journalists who've been covering this story since it broke. And it's all updated. You got court documents. You've got a website called Somali Scan. I'll show you this in just a minute. DOJ press releases, the Minnesota Legislative Auditor. So shout out to this guy here, Crypto, at Shaquille Oatmeal on X for building that for funsies. Powerful Mutual, introduced to me by the great Mr. Sue. Look at this here. So this guy, Beaver D, God's most retarded soldier. Looks like one of the Milady fellows. We have awarded our first bounty of $1,000 for the submission of thorough and well-resourced data. I'll be posting my findings later today. If you submitted this bounty, check your email so I can send the funds. They have a bounty board here. I did not want to click that. Paid research projects for documenting public records data. Complete a bounty and get paid. So they're looks like they're paying in Sol, Ethereum, and BTC, but they have these different projects that they've set up here, and you could go find one. You can do the legwork on it, submit the bounty, and if they follow up on it and it works out, then they will pay you for that. More private sector innovations for combating this fraud thing. So here's Somali Scam. Total fraud tracked, organizations tracked. You can break down by childcare, nursing homes, PPP loans, SBA loans, H-1B visas. We've got it broken down by state. You can sign up to get notifications. They've got a breakdown of all the different investigations. They've got a whole database for all these improper payments, government budgets, SBA loans, PPP loans. They've got politicians, donations, leaderboard network, and then this one here, crowdsourcing. Here's your bounty board. Now, right now it says that they have the bounty payments temporarily paused. So they're still accepting submissions, but the bounty payments are on hold until they secure additional funding. I'm hoping that we can start telling people about this and figure out a way for these guys to get more funding. Crowdsource as much of this as we possibly can. They've got a whole list of their current bounties. So they're still accepting these things. They're just not paying them out right now. Grants page, financial support for accountability work, provider accountability grant. So it says right now that they have it as claimed, but they're still asking for it. So I wanted to when I put this together a couple of days ago, it wasn't like that. This happened in the last couple of days. So I just wanted to show you guys anyways, because it's a cool idea. And then hopefully there's someone out there who could see this and go get them some money so they can keep doing this. It says the site's under active development. Data coverage is expanding hourly. President Trump said his administration plans to revoke citizenship from naturalized Americans beyond just Somali nationals if they are found to have been dishonest or involved in fraud. So not just Somalis. If you've been dishonest or involved in fraud and you're a naturalized American, he wants to revoke your citizenship. And Sun Optimist here said, I really hope more people are beginning to understand that Trump publicly downplays his actual intentions with regard to immigration. This has been obvious to me for a very long time now. The mere fact that given some of the quotes and stuff we've heard from him, that Stephen Miller is still there, I think it's very obvious that he downplays his actual intentions with regard to immigration. But there is much, much, much more to come on the immigration front. Florida will now consider a law banning remittances from illegal aliens, banning illegals from having bank accounts, and banning illegals from obtaining any loan or homeowner assistance. To me, it's insane that you even have to actually pass a law for this. Like this shouldn't be something that's required by law. It just should not be possible to have a bank account or get a loan or homeowner assistance if you're an illegal. Just should not be possible, period. You don't have to introduce a law saying that, but apparently we do. It also automatically designates illegals in a car crash at fault for the purposes of insurance claims. Overwhelming evidence is required to overturn this. Shout out to Bernie Jacques. This guy here.
Look at my African American over here. Look at him.
He's a black dude in Florida with a French name. Sounds to me like he does not like his fellow Haitians. That's going to be my guess. So his massive bill provisions, it heightens penalties for employers of illegals, bans the state from issuing licenses to illegals, bans illegals from getting any loans or homeowner assistance, bans remittances to be sent from an illegal, bans illegals from having a bank account, and at fault automatically goes to the illegal driver until overwhelming evidence is presented. Bernie Jacques says, we must remove the magnets for illegal migration and hold those who provide those magnets accountable. And for a while now, we've seen, this is one of the great things about Ron DeSantis, is he was an abysmal candidate for president, but he is a tremendous governor. He sets the standard and forces all the other Republican governors to try to keep up. Maybe they can draft in his wake a little bit. So get something like this passed in Florida, and then you can start talking about duplicating it in other states. Sarah Rogers. We've seen Sarah Rogers, Undersecretary of State, multiple times. She's the one that I played the video of her saying faggot on a video, specifically to make a point to British censorship technocrats. She shares this headline from LBC. It says, serial rapist Metropolitan Police officer allowed to join the force because of drive to improve diversity. This is like I was going to say it's like a Monty Python headline, but it's like what Monty Python headline could have been. Serial rapist allowed to join the Metropolitan Police Force for diversity. She said, I've received some questions about what we mean in our national security strategy when we invoke civilizational concerns. So I'm tweeting a relevant news item. This is a civilizational concern. Yes, having serial rapist police officers simply because you need to have diversity. You're not going to have a civilization. We've got undersecretaries of state sassily speaking about civilizational concerns on X, boys. This is what winning looks like. So let's talk about Elbridge Colby. Monty Python presents Camp of the Saints. Yeah, right. That's our Foytriot. Trent Ferrer says this administration is a civil war between Florida and Minnesota. That's a very interesting way to look at it. Totally. A civil war between Florida and Minnesota playing out at the federal level. So true. So Vice President J.D. Vance speaks in support of Elbridge Colby's nomination. This was back in, I want to say this was like June or May, somewhere in the vicinity of that. I'll speed it up just a little bit, about 5.5 minutes. This is what our Vice President thinks of Bridge Colby.
Great. Thank you, Chairman Wicker, and thanks to the ranking member, Senator Reid, and thanks to all my friends from across the aisle who permit this brief intrusion into what was otherwise, I'm sure, a very distinguished and interesting conversation. But I wanted to be here because I thought it was important to tell you all about my friend Bridge Colby and why I think he's important to the president's defense policy and important to what the president is trying to accomplish with national security. So first, I think Bridge, more than any person I've ever spoken to, appreciates that military power, national security influence is downstream of economic power. As we've seen in so many of the conflicts that we've engaged ourselves in over the last 30 or 40 years, we cannot fight wars unless our troops have the ammunition they need. We cannot defend our own national security unless we have the tank shells, the artillery shells, and increasingly the drones and other advanced weapon systems that are necessary to actually fight battles when, God forbid, those battles are necessary to fight. And I think Bridge has been particularly aware of and worried about the degradation of our defense industrial base and how we must rebuild it if we want to preserve our own national security. I've had many conversations with Bridge before I was a United States Senator, certainly before I was the Vice President of the United States, where in so many ways Bridge predicted what we would be talking about 4 years down the road, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road. He saw around corners that very few other people were seeing around. That doesn't mean he's always right about every issue or that you'll agree with him on every issue. And I say that to both the Democrats and the Republicans on the committee, but I think that he's the type of perspective that we need so desperately at the Department of Defense, and I think that his role at the Department of Defense will be incredibly important in seeing around the corners of the next 5 years and the next 10 years, and that's one of the most important reasons why I think we should support his nomination at this great committee, but obviously support his confirmation in the United States Senate. Let me say a couple of other things about Bridge, and then I'll let you guys get on with the committee hearing. First of all, Bridge is a person of incredible integrity and intellect. His educational credentials are extraordinary, but to my Democratic friends, I think you also find he's a person who can actually work across the aisle. If you look at his long career in defense policy, he has said things that is frankly alienated Democrats and Republicans. He's also said things that I think both Democrats and Republicans would agree with. He obviously is a conservative. He obviously is the nominee of President Trump, and we nominated him because we think he's going to do a great job. But I think you'll find that he's the kind of guy that you can engage in meaningful conversation, whatever your agreement or disagreement with his views is. And again, that's one of the things that we need to bring to the Department of Defense. Bridge is a good guy. And I said this in the only other confirmation hearing that I actually introduced a guest, Secretary Lutnick. You need good people in government. You need people who are going to tell you the truth, who are going to look you in the eye, who are going to disagree, sometimes amicably, of course, but actually be willing to look you in the eye and have an important conversation, who you can trust to tell you what they actually think, agree or disagree. And that's the kind of person that Bridge is. He's a great family man. He comes from a life of service, but also a family of service going back many generations. And he's the kind of guy that we need working on policy at the senior levels of the Department of Defense. And of course, that's why the president nominated him. And the final thing that I want to say about Bridge is so much of this question of rebuilding the industrial base, and I think it's one of the few areas of genuine bipartisan agreement. We may not always agree exactly how to do it, but I think everybody pretty much agrees that we have to build the industrial base in the United States that can support the national security policy of the next generation. Whether you have a Democrat or Republican president 20 years from now, you need to ensure that the troops who are under the command of that commander-in-chief actually have the weapon systems necessary to support themselves and to accomplish the mission. That's not a simple matter of throwing money at the problem. That's not a simple matter of saying we need to buy more weapons. It also goes deeply into questions of procurement. How are we buying those weapons? How are we engaging with the technologists of the 21st century? Because we're never going to beat China in a war of population. They have, 1.3, 1.4 billion people, and we've got just north of 300 million. But what we can do is actually have the kind of technology that gives our troops and gives our people the advantage over the long haul. And that means not just buying more weapons. That means being smart about how we buy weapons in a a way that enhances our technological edge and ensures that upstarts, not just the big five incumbents, but upstarts can participate in the process of procurement and of giving our troops the weapon systems that they need. So I think that we need to think deeply about these questions. I think that President Trump and the Department of Defense, Secretary Hegseth on down, are thinking deeply about these questions. Bridge Colby is an important part, not just of thinking about these questions, but also accomplishing important policy. And so with all respect to all of you and knowing that all of you will make up your own minds, I highly encourage you to give Bridge Colby your stamp of approval. He's a good guy, he's a smart guy, and he'll do a good job for the United States of America. Thank you all for having me.
Trent Fear says, we can never go back to pre-Vance politicians. None of them talk with this much sincerity and competence. That's why I just sat there and just let it played. I don't understand the people who think that they've bought into this meme that JD Vance is a phony, because you can't fake the sort of like authenticity and sincerity that he has. You get people who will like talk about like physiognomy and all this sort of stuff, and they act like they really understand people, and it's like, you don't understand people. If you look at JD Vance and you see like insincerity and inauthenticity, you don't understand people. You're projecting something of yourself or something. If anything, he's too sincere. Like, he would do better to be just a little more, maybe a little cagier or something like that. But he is on point. So note the significance of having the vice president come down for this. It's not a cabinet official. This is let me see what his exact role was. It here. His exact role. Well, interestingly, he is the son of Bill Colby, who was the director of Central Intelligence. Was actually part of OSS back in the day, and then joined the CIA and became the director of Central Intelligence. So very interesting background. Elbridge Colby is the Undersecretary of Defense for Policy. That's his official title, Undersecretary of Defense for Policy. So he's not, he mentioned he also went and gave his speech in favor of Lutnick, but so an undersecretary, you have the nomination for an undersecretary, and the vice president goes down and goes out of his way to deliver a rousing endorsement of him and say, this guy is super key to what we want to do. And what are the things he talked about? He talked about economic dominance, and he talked about industrialization, and specifically military procurement as part of industrialization, and getting away from the defense primes, getting away from the priorities of all the major defense primes, and opening up procurement to be more targeted and efficient. Because go back to the thing I was talking about earlier with Maduro. If your military approach, for whatever reason, needs to be about hyper-efficient targeted strikes versus big, massive shows of force, then your procurement needs to reflect that as well. You need to be agile and dynamic and flexible, and you need to have like absolute control over your industrialization and weapons creation and procurement processes. These are all part of the same picture. So when it's part of my issue when I see the people who are like really over-indexing on one thing over another thing, is they're not seeing this whole picture of how all these different dynamics fit with one another. In one conversation, you can go from immigration to economics to finance to military technology to trade policy to these all naturally play into one another, and you don't fix them by just going to one single thing. You have to take a comprehensive, all of government approach toward attacking a bunch of different fronts all at the same time. Another great endorsement of Bridge Colby, Senator Eric Schmidt. We're going to get a little Schmidt posting here. This one's a little shorter.
It's common today to hear leaders in the foreign policy establishment talk of upholding the rules-based international order and promoting liberal values and norms. What is much less common is to hear anyone talk about tangible, concrete American interests. Mr. Colby is a welcome exception. He believes that America is a real, concrete nation and people with real, concrete interests, and that the fundamental purpose of our foreign policy is to protect and advance those interests. For the past 30 years, American foreign policy has lurched from disaster to disaster. To be a friend of the reigning consensus is to be an advocate for the same failed ideas that led us to spend trillions of dollars and countless young Americans' lives for causes and conflicts that were not ours, while leaving us woefully unprepared.
Causes and conflicts that were not ours. Interesting. I wonder whose they were.
For the ones that are. America does not need more of the same. What America needs is a new approach, a new strategy, a new philosophy of strength for the 21st century. That is what Elbridge Colby will deliver. The political class in this city must come to terms with the fact that the world most of us grew up in no longer exists. President Trump intends to drag this city, kicking and screaming if necessary, into the 21st century. That is what we saw at the White House last week. A new foreign policy centered around uncompromising and unapologetic pursuit of the interests of the American people. Mr. Colby will play a key role in that project, and I look forward to watching him serve as our next Undersecretary of Defense for Policy. Mr. President, I yield back.
Yes, he said the world you grew up in no longer exists. This is my Republican Party. This is the Republican insurgency. The tip of the spear is Senator Eric Schmidt, Vice President J.D. Vance, Undersecretary of Defense Elbridge Colby. That is what I'm talking about. Trent Fear says American interests include collecting all the El Presidentes and having to perform menial tasks around the White House to work off their sentences. Watch out, Lula. You're going to get yoinked. You're going to get yoinked and turned into my president's janitor. So Michael McNair here says the architect of U.S. defense strategy, Elbridge Colby, published his playbook years before taking office. Most haven't read it. In my report, I break down his framework, show its influence on the national security strategy, and why the spheres of influence theory gets it wrong. I saw that and I was like, okay, well, that's very interesting. How is it that the spheres of influence theory, at least as this guy understands it, does not correspond to the bridge at the center of the Pentagon, Mr. Elbridge Colby? So this is from, it's posted on Medium, Michael McNair on Medium. The bridge at the center of the Pentagon, the architect of U.S. defense strategy. The man setting the U.S. defense strategy has already told you exactly how he thinks. He published the playbook years before taking office, and surprisingly few analysts have actually read it. Elbridge Colby, or Bridge to those who know him, now serves as Undersecretary of Defense for Policy, the senior official responsible for running U.S. defense strategy. Captain John Conrad, another patriot, great poster, after spending a week inside the Pentagon, put it bluntly in his 13,000-word field report for G-Captain. Quote, aside from Hegseth, the most powerful gravitational body in the building is Elbridge Colby. He added that Colby's, quote, grand strategy remains exactly what he published in his books and interviews long before taking office. He is executing it now. Most officials don't tell you how they think until they're already in office, if ever. Colby did the opposite. He spent years laying out his framework in public. His 2021 book, The Strategy of Denial, American Defense in an Age of Great Power Conflict, reads less like an academic exercise and more like the playbook for how the United States is now approaching defense strategy. For anyone doing serious macro or geopolitical analysis, this creates an unusual opportunity. The assumptions are visible. The logic is traceable. The framework is on the page. And yet most analysts I encounter haven't read him and are consequently misreading American strategic moves in ways that lead to fundamentally flawed conclusions. The systems thinker. I love when I read or hear someone talk and I can just tell this is a thinker who resonates with me. I can see their brilliance, and sometimes it's a brilliance that others miss. That's Colby. What distinguishes Colby from most strategic thinkers is his recognition that strategy operates as a complex, adaptive system. He doesn't ask, what should we do about Taiwan in isolation? He asks, What is China's optimal strategy, and how do we make that strategy fail? He thinks through second and third order effects, understands how actions in one theater affect capacity in another, and builds a framework where the pieces actually connect. Conrad, who has known Colby for years, put it well, quote, "He thinks in spirals, not lines. Every problem sits somewhere in the vast M.C. Escher-style Rubik's Cube inside his head. And linear thinkers cannot follow him through its folds, so they assume he opposes what he simply refuses to oversimplify. This stands out because it's rare. So much of what passes for strategic analysis is lazy thinking dressed up in confident language. People pattern match to historical analogs without grasping the real underlying dynamics, so they misapply the lessons. They reach for convenient tropes that sound smart but collapse under scrutiny. They think linearly when the system they're analyzing is anything but. Colby is different. His arguments are rigorous. He defines his terms, states his assumptions, works through the logic, and shows you exactly where the conclusions come from. You can disagree with his premises, but you can't say he hasn't thought it through. Reading The Strategy of Denial felt like watching someone build a machine where every gear meshes properly. For anyone doing macro geopolitical work, this book should be required reading. And after reading this article here, I am going to be purchasing that book and reading it. The Strategy of Denial. Colby's core claim is that U.S. strategy in the 21st century should aim to prevent China from achieving hegemony over Asia. The rest of his framework follows from that point. Asia already accounts for nearly half of global GDP on a purchasing power basis, and that share is likely to grow. A China that dominates the region would control the most economically significant part of the world, sit on top of critical supply chains, and be positioned to project power in ways that directly threaten American prosperity and security. In Colby's view, China's best path to regional hegemony is a, quote, focused and sequential strategy, end quote. Beijing would isolate and pick off coalition members one by one, starting with Taiwan, then the Philippines, then others, creating a series of fait accomplis that add up to dominance. The answer, in his terms, is a denial defense. The United States must lead an anti-hegemonic coalition that can deny China the ability to achieve its objectives by force. Taiwan is the linchpin. If China can take Taiwan, the coalition fractures and the sequential strategy succeeds. If Taiwan holds, the strategy fails. That logic sets his priorities. It explains why burden sharing with allies matters, because the United States cannot do this alone. It also underlies his idea of differentiated credibility, the view that America has to prioritize commitments in Asia if it wants those commitments to be believable. And it helps make sense of decisions that might otherwise look inconsistent. In my work on the Venezuelan crisis and autonomous underwater vehicles, that framework turned out to be a useful guide. That's a hell of a sentence. In my work on the Venezuelan crisis and autonomous underwater vehicles, sir, you have my attention. I noted that Colby, if he had his way, would station every carrier we have in the Western Pacific. So when he signed off on diverting high-end naval assets to the Caribbean, I didn't read it as a random overreach or a political stunt. If a planner with that worldview is willing to divert capacity away from Asia, the threat assessment must have been serious enough to override his core strategic instinct to prioritize the China threat above all else. That is why I read the Venezuela buildup as a real maritime denial problem and correctly predicted months in advance that the administration would not stop short of regime change. From theory to execution. If you want to see Colby's framework translated into policy, read the White House National Security Strategy released in late 2025. His fingerprints are all over it. The document opens with a critique that could have come straight from his book. It argues that American strategies since the Cold War, quote, have been laundry lists of wishes or desired end states that, quote, have not clearly defined what we want and, quote, have often misjudged what we should want. A strategy, the NSS insists, quote, must evaluate, sort, and prioritize. Not every country, region, issue, or cause, however worthy, can be the focus of American strategy, end quote. That is Colby's voice. Strategy is about painful choices, and trying to do everything means doing nothing well. The regional priorities match his book exactly. On Asia, the NSS says that, quote, the Indo-Pacific is already the source of almost half the world's GDP based on purchasing power parity, and 1/3 based on nominal GDP. That share is certain to grow over the 21st century, end quote. On Taiwan, it notes that, quote, given that 1/3 of global shipping passes annually through the South China Sea, this has major implications for the U.S. economy. Hence, deterring a conflict over Taiwan, ideally by preserving military overmatch, is a priority, end quote. The burden-sharing logic is there too. The NSS calls for allies to spend more and take primary responsibility for their own regions, freeing American resources to concentrate where they matter most. On Europe, the document notes that, quote, European allies enjoy a significant hard power advantage over Russia by almost every measure save nuclear weapons, end quote. The implication is that Europeans can handle their neighborhood. Even the Western Hemisphere focus fits his framework. Securing the home base is not a retreat from Asia. It's a prerequisite for sustaining power projection into the Indo-Pacific. You cannot fight a war in the Western Pacific if hostile actors control your southern approaches. He wrote the playbook, now he is running it. Against the spheres of influence story. There is a theory that the United States has made a silent agreement with Russia and China to divide the world into spheres of influence. America gets the Western Hemisphere, Russia gets Europe, China gets Asia. Clean lines on a map. You've probably seen some version of it. There's a picture here of a rough picture. Interestingly, this picture was quote tweeted by Kirill Dmitriev, for what it's worth. It pattern matches to Yalta, or the Concert of Europe, without engaging with the strategy actually being executed. That theory is hard to reconcile with Colby's book. His entire framework is built on the premise that preventing Chinese regional hegemony in Asia is the non-negotiable core interest of U.S. strategy. Ceding Asia to China is not burden sharing, it is strategic suicide. You do not hand over the most economically consequential region on Earth to your principal competitor. The confusion comes from mistaking prioritization for abandonment. When Colby argues that Europe should take primary responsibility for its own defense, he is not saying Russia gets Europe. He is saying Europeans have the resources to handle their own continent, so American resources should concentrate where they are actually needed for the balance of power to hold. Here's the map again. So you've got the, I don't know what ME is supposed to stand for here, but you got the United States in the Western Hemisphere. You've got Putin with Russia and Europe and parts of Northwest Africa. And then you've got Xi with the basically southern 2/3 of Africa, the Middle East, China, and Australia, and all of Oceania. MAGA Empire. There we go. Yeah. MAGA Empire. Let's see here. The Western Hemisphere focus is not America retreating to its corner either. It is securing the base of operations. You cannot project power into the Indo-Pacific if hostile actors control the Gulf shipping lanes, your canal access, or critical supply chains in your own hemisphere. The Monroe Doctrine reassertion enables the Asia strategy. It does not replace it. On Taiwan, the NSS is explicit that the United States, quote, does not support any unilateral change to the status quo in the Taiwan Strait, end quote. That is not ceding Asia, it's drawing a hard line at the most strategically critical node. The spheres of influence story is popular because it's simple. 3 great powers, 3 regions, neat boundaries. Colby's framework shows why strategy does not work that way. He spent hundreds of pages explaining how to prevent Chinese hegemony in Asia. The idea that he then quietly agreed to hand Beijing the region does not survive contact with the text. Conclusion. Elbridge Colby is one of the most influential strategic thinkers in the U.S. government right now, and he laid out his thinking in public before he took office. That combination is rare. For anyone doing macro or geopolitical analysis, ignoring his work is a mistake. The strategy of denial is not light reading, but it is a central framework shaping American defense policy. If you want to understand why the administration is making the moves it is making, this is where you start. The book will not give you trade recommendations or ticker symbols. What it gives you instead is more valuable. It gives you a map of how the people setting strategy actually think. When you understand the framework, the signals become legible. When you do not, you end up drawing lines on a map and mistaking them for strategy. Read the book. Again, the book is called The Strategy of Denial, American Defense in an Age of Great Power Conflict by Elbridge A. Colby. And I am going to be getting that book and reading it because I want to understand. I have some thoughts on I think it's the whole like ARC idea, America, Russia, China, is kind of what he's alluding to here, and it's very compelling in part because ARC is just such a simple term. It's just the term it's too good. It's too good. ARC. You get like the arc of history, the arc of great power. America, Russia, China. It just fits well. And like you said, you kind of draw these easy boundaries and it makes sense. But I think it's oversimplified as well. And I think that there is a properly high resolution understanding of what ARC would actually entail, the ARC concept would actually entail. My gut says that it actually integrates very well with what Bridge Colby is talking about. It's a much more pragmatic, power projection based view of the world. So I think this, it sounds to me like this guy is probably oversimplifying in the opposite direction. He's attacking sort of a straw man of the ARC thing. But I think he also is oversimplifying it in the other direction. But I also have not read Bridge Colby's book, which is part of why I want to read it so that I can have more thoughts on this. Heinz in the chat, he said the tripolar order isn't as basic as that map. Yeah, I agree. The USA would keep Western Europe and Australia, and all three powers would meddle in each other's spheres. Yeah, but they'd all keep each other in check. When one gets too big, the other two would team up against the third. Yeah. Yep, I think that's exactly right. So it's not that China gets Asia and Russia gets Europe and America gets the Western Hemisphere. That those are going to be seen as the regions where we have disproportionate influence, and it narrows out the conflict zones. Where you can have this conflict zone around Taiwan, but you can actually maintain a pretty stable equilibrium there if you have pragmatic, straightforward priorities in diplomacy between the United States and China. And obviously, diplomacy with the United States and China directly implicates Russia, with Russia and China. And, you can start going round and round in circles with these again. So treating any of these as like an isolated standalone issue is another one of these mistakes that a lot of people make. You could say like there's a difference between foreign policy and domestic policy, and also there's a difference between Chinese policy and Russian policy. It's like all of these all implicate each other, and we live in a globalized world. Anyone who's like, we should just not be involved in any of this stuff, all right, just go play in the sandbox. We don't live in that world. Yeah, it would be nice if America could just have no position on anything outside of its immediate hemisphere and could totally withdraw and be completely autarkic. And it would also be great if there was no federal taxes and like living in Ancapistan in your head and living in isolationism in your head. These are kind of the same thing. Okay, let's see. Oh yeah, Lindsey Graham, the thing I put in the title. So Lindsey Graham has made a significant statement, but that statement is based off of this one.
I want to taper off the military aid within the next 10 years.
That would be a very dramatic shift.
We kept, as you say, American military support to the tune of $3.8 billion a year. Much appreciated. So now in my visit with President Trump, I said, we very deeply appreciate the military aid that America has given us over the years, but here too we've come of age and we've developed incredible capacities. And in our economy, which will soon reach, certainly within a decade, it'll reach about $1 trillion. It's not a huge economy, but it's not a small economy. So I want to taper off the military aid within the next 10 years.
Slutty Milk says BB looks like a mix of Putin and a mouse. It's BB. Also, I'll modify that. BB looks like a mix of Putin and Fievel.
That's not saying that I don't want to fight for the allegiance and support of the American people. I do. You have to be crazy not to. And it's something deep. It's not.
You want to taper it off to zero within 10 years?
Yes.
That would be a very dramatic shift.
Well, it's in the works. Let's
get that a couple more times.
In the works. Well, it's in the works. Well, it's in the works.
That little glance of his eyes right there was very interesting. This is not a comfortable, happy, confident man, despite what his words are saying. That is he looks like he's reading off of a hostage script. Yeah, I wonder who made this happen. Interesting. Oh, you're going to get weaned off of military aid. You're going to get weaned off of the aid from the United States. And you need to figure out a way to sell that. You need to go out and make it compelling to people. Oh yeah, it's actually because we're so powerful and awesome and terrific and wonderful. And who's been saying exactly this is coming down the pike? I've been telling you guys this for a couple of years, that we're going to hit the point where the natural progression is, I'm pro-Israel because I want Israel to stand on its own 2 feet. Same with Europe. Europe can defend themselves. They don't need us. They don't need our intervention. No, they can just stand on their own 2 feet. They don't need to control everything that we do. We can do our own thing. You do your own thing, and we can be great collaborative allies. What's that? What's that? You're crawling back and begging? Oh, now we get to dictate terms to you? Oh, isn't that interesting? The Jews want the U.S. to be independent all along. Without Jews, you win. If we stop funding Israel, the Jews win, guys. Send another $1 trillion. So Senator Lindsey Graham tells Jewish Insider that he'll try to expedite halting U.S. aid to Israel after Prime Minister Netanyahu said he'll move to end U.S. assistance within 10 years. Quote from Lindsey Graham. Patriot Lindsey Graham says, now that this decision has been made, I don't think we need to wait 10 years. I'm going to work on expediting the wind down of the aid and recommend we plow the money back into our own military. I bet you want to plow something into the military, Lindsey Graham, you disgusting freak.
Get that ugly, disabled freak away from me. I don't want to look at his fucked up face. His smushed in, garbled, baby, disabled face. I don't want to look at it.
What a fag. No thanks, irrelevant pervert.
This is also what he said. President Trump's budget request of $1.5 trillion for the Department of War is a major increase, and every dollar we can recoup from efficiency or allies who don't need the money anymore is welcome to go into building up our military. Israel's a great friend and a marvelous military, but we're the only superpower in the world. America and the demands on us are at an all-time high because of the threats. The American military is the best in the world and in great demand, so what I think is best for America, now that Israel has made this decision, is to expedite this money, plowing it back into our own military needs. This is like catnip for Perry Abbasi. I haven't looked to see what he said about this, but this is why Rand Paul is a faggot and Lindsey Graham is a patriot. And if you don't understand this, you are not fit to try to understand modern politics, or maybe politics in general. You don't understand power politics, factional negotiations. Lindsey Graham has financial interests. Those financial interests for a long time have been tied to Isrull because of all the other military interests tied to Isrull. If those other interests stop being tied to Isrull, Lindsey Graham is tied to those military interests. His military contractor buddies that he gets paid off of. The people who own him. He's going to follow them wherever they go. So attacking the Lindsey Graham Israel thing is you're engaging in the kayfabe. That's not to say he doesn't have ties directly to Israel itself. And this isn't to say, oh, there's just going to be a total divorce between the United States and Israel. It's much more complicated than that. But you see how the actual game that's being played here. Lindsey Graham follows power. He follows money. You don't need to, if you're trying to argue with him on the basis of patriotism or loyalty to your country or whatever, just buy the man. He's for sale. Just buy him. There's so many of these guys. I would much rather have a shameless creature for power who could just be bought off than I would some sort of grandstanding loser like Thomas Massey or Marjorie Taylor Greene or Rand Paul or any of these obstructionist fuckwits. I don't want to hear about Congress. I don't want my Congress members to do anything. I would prefer you not be involved whatsoever under any terms, period. I want Congress to be invisible. I don't want you grandstanding on your principles. Even if I might agree with some of the principles, that's not your job. Go start a fucking podcast. I want Congress to be dissolved so that people like Thomas Massey don't have a job. I want him to go get an actual job doing something productive. So my standard for judging an effective member of Congress is to what extent do they just follow around and do whatever they're told? Follow Donald Trump around and do whatever they're told. That's my standard. If you don't do that, I don't want you in Congress. So apparently it was a total rumor that a totally unverified rumor that the Supreme Court was going to be weighing in on the tariffs today. There was a big rumor that was going around. A lot of people were treating it as if it was a given, and I hadn't followed it super closely, so I just assumed it was true. But it is not true. Definitely did not happen. However, here's an interesting prediction from at TMT Long Short, just another pod guy. He's made some interesting commentary and predictions in the past. He said, prediction, the Supreme Court will rule in Trump's favor. Immediately after, Trump will leverage the extension of Obamacare subsidies and moderate relief on student loans to ram through a bill that sends a fairly substantial check to every working American making under $100,000. Rough math, 80% of the working population equals about 140 million people with a median income of $50,000. A 5% wage lift equates to roughly a $3,500 check per person, or about $350 billion. This is roughly consistent with the projected tariff collections Bessent claims he can collect. Remember, they have fully manipulated bond markets, so that's not an issue. Next, Trump is going to do something unprecedented for a president and campaign into the midterms as if it was a presidential election. Elon will accompany him and spend more than he spent in 2024. They will bring up Kirk's murder constantly. They will aggressively lean into fraud and use that as an excuse to withhold funds from states that are deep blue. They will tie together welfare fraud and remittances to terrorists in other countries. If they're smart, they will even send people a real check signed by Trump and then a monopoly paper check with a significantly higher amount with the caption, "This is how much you'd be getting if your state wasn't paying for illegals' welfare and health care." Mr. President, are you listening? If there's anybody remotely near the White House listening to these words right now, run this one up the chain. This is brilliant. This is how much you'd be getting if your state wasn't paying for illegals' welfare and health care. You want to get that on everybody's radar? Give them some money, make them happy about it, but make them wish that it was more. Meanwhile, real wages will be booming because all those data centers don't have sufficient blue-collar workers and need to start raising wages. A 1 gigawatt data center costs $50 billion in capex, roughly. Of that, labor is roughly $4 billion, which means there is a tolerance for higher costs at the margin. Venezuelan oil will be used as an excuse to reverse SPR flows, if needed, to keep a lid on gas prices regardless of geopolitical volume and what happens in Russia or Iran. That's where the Venezuelan oil becomes such a massive asset, just as a chit that can be thrown down and used at any different point. It's like found money. What do we use this for? We can buy off all sorts of different things by negotiating around the margins with it, and protect the domestic energy markets. And slowly but surely, odds of Republicans holding the House will climb, which in turn will cement Trump's control. Enjoy the weekend. We're going to run it so fucking hot. Yes, it can be leveraged as collateral. Exactly. For so many things. Okay. My president is literally me. RNC Chair Joe Gruder said he was shocked to witness Trump eating French fries, a McDonald's Quarter Pounder, a Big Mac, and a fillet of fish in one sitting. My president's got an appetite. And shout out to Austin Trees. This is JD's response after seeing all the negative comments about my president's physique.
You might not like it, but this is what the peak male athletic form looks like, and there ain't a thing you can do with it.
It's a real-life rare van. Fuck watermelons.
And that's what the peak male athletic form looks like. There ain't a thing you can do about it.
The European mind cannot comprehend. All right, so I'm going to come back to this here in just a little bit. We're going to talk about Trump's health. And I've got a few different articles that I'll read through now. For those of you who want to stick around, we'll get some bonus Labe time. I've got Trump says he bruises easily because he takes 325 milligrams of aspirin a day. He says aspirin's good for thinning out the blood. I want nice thin blood pouring through my heart. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about New Year's Eve, 1999. Trump discussing potentially running for president. All of this had been planned for longer than many people know. We'll look at Donald Trump's 15-year-old book on public policy, revealing what kind of president he'd be. Written back, when did he write this? In 2000? Oh, no, 2010. He wrote a book in 2010. So there's a write-up on that. And then Margot Martin, who provides the raw material to Trump's influencer machine. I'll come back to all this here in just a little bit. I'm going to take a little urination break and go smoke myself a cigarette. So I will leave you for about 10 minutes or so with some EWBSX. And when I get back, we will keep on. Yeah, we'll do the leftist ass. We'll do the leftist ass when I come back. But I'm going to be gone a little bit longer than that. So I'll give you guys some EWBSX, and then we'll eat some leftist ass, and then we'll talk about my president and his extraordinary health.
Just write me out to never miss one another. Happy will I become? Be true that this is no option. So it's in goddamn you, demon, demon love. Last kiss for you, one more wish to you. Please make up your mind, girl. I'll do anything for you. Last kiss for you, one more wish to you. Please make up your mind, girl, before I hope you die.
welcome to EWBSX, where we've painstakingly curated a selection of audio experiences that are proven to boost test and delete that pesky MK Ultra programming that's been keeping you down. You're going to want to sit down for this one.
I can't get these memories out of my mind, and some kind of madness has started to evolve. I tried so hard to let you go, but some kind of madness is swallowing me whole. Yeah, I have finally seen the light, and I have finally realized what you mean. And now I need to know, is this real love, or is it just madness keeping us afloat? And when I look back at all the crazy fights we had, it's like some kind of madness was taking control. Yeah. And now I have finally seen the light, and I have finally realized what you need. And now I have finally seen the end. I'm not expecting you to care, but I have finally seen the light, and I have finally realized I need to just in a dream. Come on and rescue me. Yes, I know I can be wrong, and maybe I'm too headstrong. Our life is
What's going on with you, big guy?
I don't know the truth. I don't know the way. I don't know what to think. but that's alright. Yeah, that's okay. I don't know
EWBSX, the cyberbully. Don't let them fool you. We're going to win.
ever been close to tragedy or been close to folks who have? Have you ever felt the pain so powerful, so heavy you collapse? No, well, I never had to knock on wood, but I know someone who has, which makes me wonder if I could. It makes me wonder if I never had to knock on wood. And I'm glad I haven't yet, because I'm sure it isn't good. That's the impression that I get. Have you ever had the odds stacked up so high you need a strength most don't possess? Or has it ever come down to do or die? You got to rise above the rest. Someone who has, which makes me wonder if I could. It makes me wonder if I never had to knock on wood. And I'm glad I haven't yet, because I'm sure it isn't good. That's the impression that I get. I'm not a coward, I've just never been tested. I'd like to think that if I was, I would pass. Look at the tested and think there before the grace go on. Might be a coward, I'm afraid of what I might find out. Never had to knock on wood, but I know someone who has, which makes me wonder if I could. It makes me wonder if I never had to knock on wood. And I'm glad I haven't yet, because I'm sure it isn't good. That's the impression that I get. Never had to, but I better knock on wood, 'cause I know someone who has, which makes me wonder if I could. It makes me wonder if I never had to, but I better knock on
The New
wood.
World Order is going to take everything you got. They're going to take your children's soul. Are you going to keep bowing down to these people? Everything they do is poison. Everything they do is designed to destroy you. And you got to decide, I'm not owned by the devil. I'm not owned by the New World Order. It's a pack of criminals, and everybody knows it. And that's why the enemy hates me so much. That's why they hate you so much, because they know we're real. They know we love God. They know we tell the truth. When it comes to serving evil, we don't do it. And we stand against it. What matters is your freedom. What matters is your integrity. What matters is who you are, and that you're not for sale. Ever. And I don't know how this is going to end, but if you want to fight, you better believe you got one.
So true, Mr. Jones, so true. We will not bow to evil. We are not for sale, ever! Okay, we are back. We are back for bonus lab time. Before I start reading some of these some of these interesting articles. I gotta make sure you guys were aware of this. You may have seen the Jimmy Kimmel special. You may have seen. Oh, my bad. Yeah, that's right. I forgot I was going to give you some ass eating. That would have segued so perfectly, wouldn't it? If I would have just gone straight from the Alex Jones chimping out to eating leftist ass. Well, here you go. We'll eat some leftist ass real quick.
Your leftist ass like corn on the cob. I'm ready. I will eat your ass. I will eat your leftist ass like corn on the cob. I'm ready. I will eat you. I will eat your ass. My children aren't going hungry. I'll do it. I'll drink your blood. And I'm starting to think about having to eat my neighbors. You think I like sizing up? I'm gonna haul him up by chain. Chop his ass up, size it up. I'm gonna haul him up by chain. Chop, 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 chop. I will eat your leftist ass like corn on the cob. I'm ready. I will eat your ass. I will eat your leftist ass like corn on the cob. I'm ready. I will eat you. I will eat your ass. I'll barbecue your ass flat. I will cook your ass up so fast, and I'll tell them, "Oh, I killed a cow out back, baby." You think Christ would eat somebody? He would never do that. I will. I'm ready to hang them up, gut them and skin them and chop them up. You know what? I'm ready. I will eat your leftist ass like corn on the cob. I'm ready. I will eat your ass. I will eat your leftist ass like corn on the cob. I'm ready. I will eat you. I will eat your ass. I will eat your leftist ass like corn on the cob. I'm ready. I will eat your ass. I will eat your leftist ass like corn on the cob. I'm ready. I will eat you. I will eat your ass. And that's why I want the globalists to know. I will eat your ass first. I swear to God, if it's the last thing I do, I'm going to get my hands around your throat.
You know, I think I might have identified a problematic incentive structure here. If he wants to eat leftists, well, maybe actually, I'm talking myself around the corner here, because actually this is a good thing. He's going to eat the leftists' asses, which means he's got a strong incentive to ensure that if there are leftists, they're the Alex Stein type. He needs Alex Stein type leftists. What type? What are the Alex Stein type leftists? The big booty Latinas. Alex Jones, we've learned today, is a promoter of big booty Latinas. That way his sacrifice that he makes is not nearly as much of a sacrifice, or something like that. Anyways, you guys may have heard the news that Jimmy Kimmel is getting into the merch business, and we decided that we were going to excuse me, I misspoke here. The cyberbully declared to us that we are going to get out in front of this and not allow Jimmy Kimmel to make money off of Keno. Did you know a gentleman named Donald John Trump? Have you heard of him? Donald J. Trump is going to kill you. And you can let the world know now by going to the EWBSX merch store and getting your very own Donald J. Trump is going to kill you t-shirt. Only $22 for a limited period of time, as featured on Jimmy Kimmel Live, the Jimmy Kimmel Special. I will post the link in the chat here. And then it'll be in the Substack link later on if you guys want to go buy the Donald J. Trump is going to kill you shirt. If you buy that and go wear it out in public, please capture footage. Report back. Let us know how it went. I want to know the stories. There are other options here as well. You got you can rock CB himself. Look at that handsome bastard. We are so back. Always back. You got a Simple and Hard shirt. New Simple and Hard episode coming soon. Look at that. Too much scary versus soft things. EWBSX will make you bust right down the middle. Right between herded and zzz. You can get yourself a Simple and Hard pod tee. Also, there's the OG EWBSX t-shirt. Many different ways that you can satiate your desire for fun and based apparel. EWBSX.store. Go check it all out. The link will be, let me go back, make sure I actually have the link to the Donald Trump shirt. There you go. Donald J. Trump is going to kill you. That will be posted in the Substack or podcast description later on. All right. 1,000 years from now, the idea that the president who killed every major political dynasty, Clinton, Bush, Obama, and Biden, survived a grazing shot to the head, took 325 milligrams a day of aspirin, and never drank, was named Trump, will be regarded as a clear mythicization. Mythicization. That's a fucking hard word to say. Fucking hell. Mythicization. I like I can't even say that now. Mythicization. I like fucking hell. Mythicization. A clear mythicization. I like that one better. So Kenneth P. Vogel here. Trump says he bruises easily because he takes 325 milligrams of aspirin a day and has rejected his doctor's advice to take less. Here's the article from Wall Street Journal. As signs of aging emerge, Trump responds with defiance. This is like, this is the most passive-aggressive shit ever. It's like the framing of the story is Trump is defiant. But it's like, oh, by the way, he's aging. In an interview, the president says he has eschewed some advice from his doctors and regrets getting advanced imaging. President Trump is taking more aspirin than his doctors recommend. He briefly tried wearing... Oh, man, I want to make this bigger. He briefly tried wearing compression socks for his swelling ankles, but stopped because he didn't like them. And he regrets undergoing advanced imaging because it generated scrutiny of his health. In retrospect, it's too bad I took it because it gave them a little ammunition, Trump said in an interview with the Wall Street Journal on his decision to get a cardiovascular and abdominal scan in October. I would have been a lot better off if they didn't because the fact that I took it said, oh, gee, something is wrong. Well, nothing's wrong. That's right, my president is a picture of health. There is nothing wrong. Trump, 79, the oldest man to assume the presidency, is showing signs of aging in public and private, according to people close to him. Yet he has at times eschewed the advice of his doctors and scoffed at the medical community's widely accepted health recommendations, relying instead on what he calls his good genetics. Based. Trump and his doctors say that he is in excellent health, and aides say that he maintains a vigorous schedule. Trump gets little sleep and has recently struggled to keep his eyes open during several televised events in the West Wing. See, here's the thing. I don't think that you need to be a 79-year-old man to have a hard time keeping your eyes open during some of those events. He is the attraction. He is the most interesting thing there. So, of course he would be sleepy. Aides, donors, and friends say they often have to speak loudly in meetings with the president because he strains to hear. Aside from golf, Trump doesn't get regular exercise. Whoever wrote this has never golfed before. And he is known to consume a diet heavy on salty and fatty foods, such as hamburgers and French fries. He is literally the most American man alive. His genetics are patriotism. The large dose of aspirin he chooses to take daily has caused him to bruise easily, he said, and he has been encouraged by his doctors to take a lower dose. But Trump has declined to switch because he has been taking it for 25 years. I'm a little superstitious, he said in the interview. Me when I have to listen to Democrats. They say aspirin is good for thinning out the blood, and I don't want thick blood pouring through my heart, Trump said. I want nice thin blood pouring through my heart. Does that make sense? Yes, sir, Mr. President, that makes sense. Thin blood only. Only thin blood for the true patriot. Trump denied that he struggles to hear. He also denied falling asleep at recent White House events and said he has always gotten by on little sleep. The president has sometimes described his medical care inaccurately. He has for weeks said that he underwent an MRI at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center in October. When asked about the procedure by the Journal, Trump and his doctor said he got a different form of imaging, a CT scan. A CT scan is a faster and more common way to capture detailed images of the body. The MRI is a slower test that is superior for soft tissues. It wasn't an MRI, Trump told the Journal. It was less than that. It was a scan. Navy Captain Sean Barbarella, Trump's doctor, confirmed in a statement to the Journal that Trump had received a CT scan. Barbarella said Trump's doctors initially told him they would perform either an MRI or a CT scan, and they ultimately decided to do the latter. It was done to definitively rule out any cardiovascular issues and revealed no abnormalities. The president has sought to conceal ailments that have led to speculation about his health, covering bruising on his hand with makeup. In his first term, he played down the severity of his COVID-19 symptoms and declined to disclose that he got a colonoscopy. What? What? A man in his 70s got a colonoscopy? I can't believe it. Call the New York Times! His physical signs of aging are becoming more evident to some of his closest advisors. His skin is so delicate that Pam Bondi, now his Attorney General, caused his hand to bleed when she nicked him with her ring while giving him a high five at the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee. What? My president bleeds? This truly is news. Thank you, Wall Street Journal. I would have thought he wouldn't bleed at all. My president is human? The president has often accused his predecessor, President Joe Biden, who is 5 months younger than Trump was when he took office, these motherfuckers, of hiding the extent of his health issues. They're so passive-aggressive. Well, he was 5 months younger. Biden decided not to seek re-election following a damaging debate in which he stumbled over words and appeared to lose his train of thought. Biden reinforced doubts about his fitness by avoiding unscripted exchanges and relying heavily on a few trusted aides who staged managed his schedule. Oh, look at my president right there. Nothing makes my president happier than being with his people. Trump has been almost omnipresent in his second term, fielding questions from journalists sometimes several times a day, delivering impromptu remarks, and regularly hosting dinners at the White House. Trump veers from topic to topic in his lengthy public statements and sometimes makes factual errors. It's called the weave. Maybe learn. Barbarella said in a statement to the Journal that Trump is in exceptional health and perfectly suited to execute his duties as commander-in-chief. They provided the Journal with a summary of a Mayo Clinic AI-assisted analysis of Trump's electrocardiogram that estimated the president's cardiac age to be that of a 65-year-old. So the Mayo Clinic says that he has the heart of a man 15 years younger. As a clinician, you look for clues in people, even if they're not your patient, and he is just with it on some fairly complex topics, Dr. Oz said. He hasn't provided medical care to Trump. Just so you know, he's a doctor. He spends lots of time with him, but he hasn't provided medical care to him, so he doesn't know what he's talking about. I can't even think of a single time where he said something where I don't think he understands the issue here, said Oz, who has frequently attended events with Trump. He may want you to do something that is arguable whether it's the right path to go, but it's a very rational approach to it. In an impromptu phone interview that came after the Journal shared details about its reporting with the White House, the president expressed irritation about the public debate over his health. He has grown upset with his own White House staff for not promoting him as more vigorous. Let's talk about health again for the 25th time, he said at the start of the interview. My health is perfect, he added. Trump said he often begins his day early at an office in the White House residence before coming downstairs around 10 a.m. and working in the Oval Office until 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. The White House provided a private calendar for the first 19 days in December, which included hundreds of meetings and phone calls with staff, CEOs, lawmakers, and cabinet secretaries. He said he had asked his staff to modify his schedule so that he can have fewer, more important meetings that he could devote more attention to, a change he doesn't attribute to age, but to using his time more efficiently. Administration officials said they haven't yet pared down his meeting schedule. Trump's staff have encouraged him to slow his pace. They urged him to spend roughly 2 weeks in South Florida around Christmas and New Year's Eve, according to aides, a recommendation he acted on. Trump's staff have also counseled him to try to keep his eyes open during public events, fearing the optics of his appearing to fall asleep, a person familiar with the matter said. My president can't even sit there and contemplate his orb in public because everyone will accuse him of being asleep. Cameras caught him appearing to doze in December at a cabinet meeting and during a November announcement about reducing the cost of weight loss medication. Oh yeah, that gripping subject. The fat drug. All he cares, it's just a fat drug. He's just sitting there, has to listen to these people blather on about the fat drug. Ryan Isaac said, whoever knows this author should take a bunch of soap, put it in a sock, and beat them with it. Yes! Yes! It's time to Gomer pile the journos, boys. In mid-July, Trump went to see his doctors at Walter Reed owing to what his physician described as mild swelling in his lower legs. Ultrasounds of his veins showed that the president has chronic venous insufficiency, according to a memo. It's a common condition among older people in which one-way valves inside the veins don't work properly, which makes it harder for blood to travel up the legs to the heart. In a statement to the Journal, Barbarella said the president's condition is superficial chronic venous insufficiency, which involves the smaller veins in the body and doctors say is treatable. To help treat it, the president briefly wore compression socks, but the socks didn't stay on for long. I didn't like them, Trump said during this interview. Trump and his aide said the swelling in his legs has improved. He said he's getting up from his desk and walking around a bit more, another common way to improve lower leg swelling. I would not want to wear compression socks either. But he isn't interested in an exercise routine other than golf. I just don't like it. It's boring, Trump said. To walk on a treadmill or run on a treadmill for hours and hours like some people do, that's not for me. So true, my president is literally me. Trump takes rosuvastatin and ezetimibe to control his cholesterol and uses mometasone cream to treat a skin condition, his doctor reported in April. Barbarella, Trump's physician, said the president uses aspirin for cardiac prevention. He said Trump takes 325 milligrams of aspirin a day. A low dose of aspirin is most commonly 81 milligrams. They'd rather have me take the smaller one, Trump said. I take the larger one, but I've done it for years, and what it does do is it causes bruising. Of the incident in which Bondi caused his hand to bleed, Trump said, the ring hit the back of my hand, and yes, there was a slight little cut. The cut alarmed some who witnessed the exchange, according to a person with knowledge of the episode. It's one of several instances in which his hand has been cut. Can you imagine people being like, wait a second, tell me more. Tell me, how big of a cut? Where was it? How much blood? Did he get a Band-Aid? Did he have was it a Dora the Explorer Band-Aid? No, too brown. Maybe it was a Spider-Man. Did he give him a Spider-Man Band-Aid? Trump said he applies makeup to his hands after he gets whacked again by someone. He added, I have makeup that's, easy to put on, takes about 10 seconds. The president has difficulty sleeping well at night. By his own account, is often texting and calling aides at 2 a.m. or later. Several allies described getting text messages from him after he catches up on their Fox News appearances in the wee hours of the morning. I've never been a big sleeper, Trump said. Sleeping is a particular issue aboard Air Force One, where Trump keeps his advisors awake, according to aides. Top staff take turns sitting with him on long trips, rotating so that others can sleep while one person remains by his side, according to White House officials. The president is known to poke fun at aides for falling asleep. He's like, you casuals, you filthy casuals, can't even stay awake. I don't think it mentioned it in this article, but I've read other stories about him intentionally going and waking up the journalists. Like, just because he can, he's up roaming around the plane, and he just wakes them up because he's like, well, if I'm awake, you're going to be awake too. Trump said he didn't fall asleep during recent events at the White House. I'll just close. It's very relaxing to me, he said, in describing shutting his eyes. Sometimes they'll take a picture of me blinking, and they'll catch me with the blink. I can hear it in his voice. I can hear him saying those words. Oz was at the Oval Office presentation in November and said he believes Trump became bored. Susie Wiles, the White House chief of staff, and others have urged cabinet members to shorten their presentations, according to administration officials. When asked about his hearing, Trump grew sarcastic. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. I can't hear a word you're saying, he said mockingly. The president said he only sometimes struggles to hear when there's lots of people talking. At times, the president has had trouble hearing questions from reporters that others heard. During a dinner in September with heads of major technology companies, Trump took questions from the press and motioned with his hand for a reporter to speak up. The journalist asked if Trump planned to speak soon with Russian President Vladimir Putin. What? Trump said. Then he leaned toward his wife Melania, who repeated the question to him, her comments captured on his microphone. Levitt said such incidents are rare. Barbarella described the president's hearing as normal and said in a statement to the Journal that Trump doesn't require a hearing aid. Trump said he hasn't made changes to his diet. In a podcast interview in October, RNC chairman Joe Gruters described being shocked by Trump's eating habits when they traveled together during the campaign. While flying to a campaign event, according to Gruters, Trump consumed French fries, a McDonald's quarter-pounder hamburger, a Big Mac, and a filet of fish. Trump said he had plenty of energy, which he credited to his parents, who he said were energetic until their old age. Genetics are very important, he said, and I have very good genetics. My president is powered by only the most pure American energy source, McDonald's. So New Year's Eve 1999, Trump discusses potentially running for president. All of this had been planned for longer than many people know. If you're not following MythoMaga, then you're not doing Twitter right. You got to go follow MythoMaga. Look at this here. 1999, my president.
Does that mean that you're going to run for president, or has this just been putting your toe in the water or gaining a little more publicity for the Trump empire?
Well, I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it seriously, Tom. I mean, polls have shown good. The ratings certainly show good. A lot of things show good. So we're looking at it, and I think I do a good job. We'll let you know probably in February.
Looking in February to make the announcement finally?
That's true.
So this is leading right up to Y2K. My president wasn't concerned about computer gremlins or whatnot. He had his eyes on an empire. So this is Donald Trump's 15-year-old book on public policy, which reveals what kind of president he'd be. Trump on the benefits of bombing North Korea, putting more people in jail, and taxing the hell out of millionaires. Let's cut to the chase, insisted Donald Trump. Yes, I am considering a run for the presidency of the United States. Trump didn't write those words 3 months ago. He wrote them 15 years ago. In 2000, Trump was toying with the idea of seeking the Reform Party nomination for president. Encouraged by people like then Minnesota governor and former professional wrestler Jesse the Body Ventura, Trump teased the idea in the media for a while, but abandoned the effort to Pat Buchanan, whose biggest contribution in the 2000 race was accidentally receiving the votes of a handful of elderly Jews in Florida thanks to a confusingly designed ballot. The most interesting thing to come out of Trump's dalliance with dreams of the Oval Office was a book entitled The America We Deserve. Written with the help of author Dave Shiflett, it's a 304-page compendium of policy proposals for a theoretical Trump administration. With Trump's current place atop a pile of GOP 2016 candidates, it's worth going back and looking at exactly what he advocated for a decade and a half ago. While the book is packed with stream of consciousness self-aggrandizement, self-mythologizing, and a nearly chapter-long appreciation of Oprah, the N-word, it's also the most complete record that exists of the intellectual and policy foundations of the Republican Party's current standard bearer. It's important to note that this book was written in 2000. There was no financial crisis, no 9/11, no second Iraq war, no Obama administration. Not everything he wrote about is still entirely relevant, nor necessarily representative of his positions today. However, most of the major issues haven't changed in the past 15 years. Washington is still arguing over tax cuts, China, and the solvency of Social Security. This is what Trump thinks America should do. On Vice, Trump writes that he is completely straight edge and has been for his entire life. Quote, I've never taken drugs of any kind, never had a glass of alcohol, never had a cigarette, never had a cup of coffee. I've never had a drink in my life because of my older brother Fred Jr.'s trouble with alcohol. He was handsome, brilliant, the nicest guy in the world, but he got into alcohol and it destroyed his life. He advocates making alcohol producers directly liable for the negative effects their products have on the lives of people who abuse them, such as alcoholics and those killed by drunk drivers. Quoting, for a country that has such an excess of regulation, it's interesting that we often don't regulate the right businesses. Think about whiskey. I don't know why everyone's suing tobacco companies, though they're terrible, and leaving alcohol companies alone. You have terrible auto accidents because of alcohol, thousands killed. Taxing alcohol companies isn't enough. I'd like to see them forced to take responsibility. Today, he's taken on the narco-terrorists. Education. Trump argues the biggest problem with the American educational system is its focus on students' emotional states. Quote, the people running our public schools, like people at the upper echelons of a lot of segments in our society, don't want to damage a student's self-esteem. They're concerned about empowerment. They're worried kids will feel bad if they get a problem wrong or flunk a spelling test. It's better these people think.
White man is back, baby! The white man is back!
Spud!
More babies.
More babies indeed. Thank you, Spud, for the $20 tip. The contribution to the Make More Erickson's Fund. We're going to make babies. Spud?
Oh, wow. That's pretty good. Well, you must be a high IQ person.
White males way up. White males have gone through the roof. White males way up.
Thank you, Spud. It's better, these people think, to pat a kid on the head and praise his creative spelling than point out that there is a traditional name of people with poor spelling skills. We call them illiterates. Just the funniest man alive, man. They want to pat the kid on his head and praise his creative spelling. He's just an illiterate. He also points the finger at teachers' unions, insisting they're the major force blocking school choice programs that would give public school parents more flexibility in where their kids go to school and increase the quality of schools across the board through greater competition. Quote, the Brotherhood of Blackboard Workers wants to keep the door closed to competition. That way they can run things as they choose without review. And we've got to bring on the competition. Open the schoolhouse doors and let parents choose the best school for their children. Education reformers call this school choice, charter schools, vouchers, even opportunity scholarships. I call it competition, the American way. Crime. Among the current crop of 2016 Republican candidates, Trump stands out as having the toughest rhetoric on crime. While many of Trump's primary opponents, like Kentucky Senator Rand Paul and New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, have called for major criminal justice reforms and labeled the mass incarceration triggered by the war on drugs a failure, Trump has consistently advocated in favor of law and order crime policies that effectively ignore the rights of offenders. Quote, unless we stand up for tough anti-crime policies, they will be replaced by policies that emphasize criminals' rights over those of ordinary citizens. We need to establish a zero-tolerance policy toward anyone who is getting in the way of the safer America we deserve. It's time for the real underdogs, you and me, to get up on our hind legs. My president is an underdog, just like me. We must be the perpetrators in a movement to reclaim our streets and neighborhoods, to be able to breathe freely, knowing our kids are safe. Promises made, promises kept. Arguing that much of the threat from crime was based on demographic trends, Trump predicted, inaccurately, that crime rates would spike in the 2000s. What government and the press don't like to say is that most serious crime experts believe rates will skyrocket in 2000 because there will be more adolescent boys around, and adolescent boys are especially dangerous. He also asserted that the United States, which accounts for 5% of the world's population and a quarter of its prisoners, isn't jailing enough criminals. So true! For the most part, you have to be a long-standing criminal to qualify for jail. America doesn't use prisons much more than any other civilized nation. The next time you hear someone saying there are too many people in prison, ask them how many thugs they're willing to relocate to their neighborhood. The answer? None. So true! Trump argued strongly in favor of the death penalty for convicted murderers, charging that for those who have committed the most heinous crimes, prisons have far too many amenities. Quote, I totally reject the idea that hanging these sorts of criminals, like the ones who dragged James Byrd Jr. to death, is uncivilized. They've taken an innocent life, so they should have to give theirs in return. That's the very least they can do. They don't deserve to be put into a prison where they can spend their time working out, reading, watching television, earning advanced degrees, filing bogus lawsuits, and never getting married. For this type of person, prison is a social promotion. I don't care if the victim is a CEO or a floor sweeper. A life is a life, and if you criminally take an innocent life, you'd better be prepared to forfeit your own. Linking criminality to the parenting of low-income families, Trump argued for putting more strings on governmental assistance programs. Quote, we could start by making it clear to teenage mothers that they aren't going to get public assistance unless they jump through some pretty small hoops. Some people suggest making them live in group homes or live under some kind of adult supervision. That makes sense. My president was ahead of his time. Imagine a President Donald Trump in the year 2000. Guns. Well, here you go. Trump is in favor of some moderate restrictions on access to firearms. Quote, I generally oppose gun control, but I support the ban on assault weapons, and I also support a slightly longer waiting period to purchase a gun. Foreign policy. The core of Trump's foreign policy program is that the United States has been far too willing to make diplomatic concessions. A more bellicose foreign policy across the board, he argued, would help the United States achieve more of its international goals. Quote, Americans look into the mirror and see big-hearted citizens of the world's only superpower. We've got a lot to brag about. We protect other nations when they're in trouble. We lead the world in foreign aid. We're everyone's favorite trading partner. We take in refugees and immigrants at 1 million or so a year. We bail out insolvent governments and prop up weak ones. We mediate intractable disputes. We have standing armies and jet fighter squadrons and fleets the world over. We do it all. A lot of the time, we don't even bother to send a bill. This generosity leads to very poor deal-making. And my president knows deal-making. An example is nuclear non-proliferation, which he largely discounts as a waste of time that runs counter to America's strategic interests. Quote, even during the Cold War, our diplomats were constantly falling over themselves to make goodwill offerings at the bargaining table, as if the problem were to convince our adversaries of our pure and noble intentions. We're flirting with the same kind of mistake now in debating the nuclear non-proliferation treaty. All the major powers may sign such a treaty, but no one will obey it. I oppose such agreements for the same reason I oppose gun controls. When weapons are banned, only the outlaws have them. This is very interesting because this was a change from him in the 80s. In the 80s, he was actually very much pro-nuclear non-proliferation and was even sending proposals over to Khrushchev at some point, trying to arrange making this happen. Much of the chapter about foreign policy is devoted to China, which Trump viewed as America's chief international rival. He argued against cutting trade deals with China and charged that the country's poor human rights record should be a warning sign for dealing with the Chinese government in any capacity, regardless of the potential economic benefits stemming from increased trans-Pacific trade. Quote, where I break rank with many business colleagues and foreign policy gurus is in my unwillingness to shrug off the mistreatment of China's citizens by their own government. My reason is simple. These oppressive policies make it clear that China's current government has contempt for our way of life. It fears freedom because it knows its survival depends on oppression. It does not respect individual rights. It is still, at heart, a collectivist society. As such, it is a destabilizing force in the world and should be viewed that way. We should identify China for what it is, a growing military threat abroad and an oppressive regime at home. Let's not pretend we're dealing with anything less. When it comes to the unpredictable regime leading North Korea, Trump argued for taking a more aggressive stance, doing whatever necessary to prevent the country from obtaining nuclear weapons, even going as far as a preemptive military strike against North Korea's nuclear facilities. Quote, "What would I do in North Korea? Fair question. It's easy to point out the problem, but what should be done to solve it? Am I ready to bomb this reactor? You're damned right. As an experienced negotiator, I can tell you that negotiation with these madmen will be fruitless once they have the ability to lob a nuclear missile into Chicago, Los Angeles, or New York. I don't advocate thermonuclear war, but if negotiations fail, I advocate a surgical strike against these outlaws before they pose a real threat." Attacking North Korea, he asserted, would have far-reaching benefits for America's image across the globe. Quote, "A surgical strike would not only put out the fire in North Korea, but it would also send a message around the world that the United States is going to eliminate any serious threat to its security and do so without apology." Interesting that North Korea is just like totally not a thing anymore. I remember when it was an issue all the time. Then my president crossed the demilitarized zone and made a new friend. Trump called for taking a similarly active role against the Castro regime in Cuba and against any sort of normalization of relations with the communist nation. Quote, "The first time Castro leaves Cuba for any nation that we have extradition treaties with, he should be detained, arrested, and extradited to the United States for indictment and trial on charges of murder and terrorism. Fidel is a criminal. Let's treat him like one." Even so, the Trump doctrine reserves military intervention exclusively for situations where the United States has a clearly defined, tightly drawn strategic interest. Goals, like stopping an ongoing genocide, he asserts, don't clear the bar for the deployment of U.S. military power. Isn't that interesting? 26 years ago, he felt that trying to stop an ongoing genocide was not a sufficient reason for the deployment of U.S. military power. Quote, "Humanitarian concerns, which are sometimes represented as working in our national interest, are not good enough reasons in themselves for deployment of forces. We have no business and certainly no right to intervene in conflicts just because we don't like to see innocent people being killed or dislocated." Immigration. The central plank of Trump's 2016 campaign has been a nativist opposition to immigration, both legal and undocumented. His stance remains largely unchanged from 2000. Quote, "Immigrant advocacy groups have no business rising up in protest, demanding special rights, services, and privileges. We can't allow ourselves to welcome outsiders out of kindness. If people enter this country by disregarding our laws, can we be confident that they will suddenly become law-abiding citizens once they arrive? Let's be extremely careful not to admit more people than we can absorb. It comes down to this. We must take care of our own people first." That's my president.
I am your voice.
Trade. Citing his own extensive history negotiating business deals, Trump pledged to personally take the lead on all trade negotiations. "What I would do if elected president would be to appoint myself U.S. trade representative. My lawyers have checked and the president has this authority. Our trading partners would have to sit across the table from Donald Trump, and I guarantee you the ripoff of the United States would end." Just dropping his dick on the table. Terrorism. Writing a year before the 9/11 attacks, Trump spends much of the book stoking fears about potential terrorist attacks. It was written a year before the 9/11 attacks, but he was stoking fears about potential terrorist attacks. While he paints the motivations of terrorists with the same "they hate our freedom" brush that President George W. Bush would use shortly thereafter, he also pointed to blowback from America's military adventurism abroad as a cause of anti-American sentiment. Quote, "The number of potential attackers grows every day. Our various military adventures, some of which are justified, some not, create new legions of people who would like to avenge the deaths of family members or fellow citizens. It is one cost of peacekeeping we should keep in mind." He's very Ron Paul pilled back then. Trump's solution for fighting terrorists was a vast expansion of the size and scope of the intelligence community. To pay for that, Trump proposed a novel idea. Quote, "I bet if I started a national defense lottery with money earmarked for preventing terrorism against U.S. cities, We would take in enough money to hire and train every spy on Earth and still have enough money to spare. Imagine this for a second. The Trump National Security Lottery would sell tickets, just like in a Powerball lottery, but dedicate every cent to funding an anti-terrorism campaign. Talk about a good reason to buy a lottery ticket. My president is a creative thinker. Out-of-the-box sorts of solutions. Taxes. Of everything he covers in the book, Trump goes into the most detail with his proposal to reform the tax system, which he asserts would spark a, quote, 35 to 40% boost in economic activity. The core of Trump's tax plan is an immediate transfer of wealth from the very rich to the middle class. Quote, I would impose a one-time 14.25% tax on individuals and trusts with a net worth over $10 million. That would raise $5.7 trillion in new revenue, which we would use to pay off the national debt. We would save $200 billion in interest payments, which would allow us to cut taxes on middle-class working families by $100 billion a year. Trump was right about everything, says Slutty Milk. So true. Imagine that, $5.7 trillion in new revenue that can be used to pay off the national debt. A one-time tax, pay off the national debt, save $200 billion in interest payments. Now we're at like $1 trillion a year in interest payments, if not more. And it would allow us to cut taxes on middle-class working families. We got to get the economy productive again. My president cares about his moderate income patriots. He would take the rest of the money generated from the tax on the wealthy and inject it into the Social Security Trust Fund. Trump's plan also involves having the federal government cease issuing bonds. Quote, when we pay off the national debt, we would retire all government bonds. People would be able to invest in free enterprise instead of investing in government. While Trump's plan would hit the very rich hard up front, he says he would personally lose $700 million if it were enacted. The extremely wealthy would see significant benefits later on by scrapping both the inheritance tax and the tax on capital gains, although he framed the latter as primarily aimed at helping the middle class. Quote, my proposal would also allow us to entirely repeal the 55% federal inheritance tax, which hurts farmers, small businessmen, and women most. We have a tax system that punishes the middle class for wanting to join the investment class. First, we pay taxes when we earn money, then we pay again when the money is invested, and we make capital gain. I would imagine that, like, a lot of the terms here have changed since then. Like, you can't just do a one-time tax to pay off the federal debt, and you can't retire all government bonds necessarily. But if he was of the frame of mind 25 years ago that you needed to abolish inheritance taxes and capital gains taxes and retire all government bonds for the purpose of reinvigorating the middle class and allowing mobility from the middle class into the investment class, if that's where his mind was before, then that could probably give you some ideas of where he wants to steer things now. Social Security. When it comes to Social Security, Trump is particularly scathing, calling it a huge Ponzi scheme that's soon to fall apart. His fix? Privatization. It's funny, I remember being about 10 to 12, something like that, and constantly hearing about the great evils that George Bush wants to privatize Social Security. Quoting from my president, the solution to the great Social Security crisis couldn't be more obvious. Allow every American to dedicate some portion of their payroll taxes to a personal Social Security account that they would own and invest in stocks and bonds. Federal guidelines could make sure that your money is diversified, that it is invested in sound mutual funds or bond funds and not in emu ranches. Emu ranches randomly catching a stray here for some reason. Healthcare. I'm a conservative on most issues, but a liberal on this one, Trump insists. We should not hear so many stories of families ruined by healthcare expenses. My president is compassionate. That assessment is largely accurate. While Trump pushes the unfettered free market as a solution for most problems, he was open to more government-intermediated solutions when it comes to healthcare, including giving serious consideration to a Canadian-style single-payer model. However, his first goal in reforming American healthcare is to decouple it from employment. Quote, we need a change in the tax code that would give groups and individuals tax breaks for health insurance that are equivalent to those that corporations now receive. This would allow ordinary citizens to buy coverage that complements their company policy and gives them more of what they need. It would also give them the option to jettison the company policy altogether and just buy their own insurance. He would combine that with giving families refundable tax credits to cover the cost of insurance plans based on their household income. He also proposed something that looks a lot like the government-run exchanges that sit at the heart of the Affordable Care Act. Quote, some analysts are pushing the idea of health marts, which would treat private sector employees much like public sector people. Health marts would create a group of approved plans for employees or independents to select from. This would give them control over their healthcare decisions. And frankly, it's not like this wouldn't work necessarily. It's just that the way it was structured as with the subsidies going directly to the insurance companies. If you have something like these health mart sort of things, like collective bargaining and this sort of thing for health insurance, and the subsidies are going directly to fund citizens' healthcare accounts, like a federally funded HSA, basically, then you don't have the same corrupt incentive structures built into it. Campaign finance. Trump asserted the dissatisfaction most Americans feel with their political system stems from how campaigns are financed, leading politics to become too beholden to the interests of their largest and most active donors. However, he doesn't like proposals that would directly limit donations or create a public financing system for campaigns. Quote, political contributors don't corrupt the system by giving too much. They corrupt the system by being able to act in secret. The way to fix American politics is not to limit donations, but to make sure that those donations and the donor are on the public record. Financing campaigns purely through public funding, that is with tax money. This is wrong for a couple of reasons. As the founders pointed out, there is one word to describe the act of forcing citizens to support a person or cause they reject: tyranny. Instead, he advocated for banning soft money donations, a relic of the pre-Citizens United era that allowed donors to give an unlimited amount of money to campaigns, which would then be funneled to individual candidates, as well as eliminating all donation limits and expanding disclosure requirements. Quoting, I believe that Americans should know immediately who is giving what to whom. If we have full participation, we should also have full and fast disclosure. You can learn a lot more about a politician from knowing who put the money in his pocket than you can learn from what he or she might happen to chirp from a podium. We should pass legislation that would require campaigns to electronically post donors and donations at the close of every business day. Disclosure only functions as an effective check on lawmakers if the public is consistently aware of the donation information these disclosures contain. On that front, Trump has a particularly entertaining suggestion. Quote, what I would add would be a running line at the bottom of the TV news screen listing the days or perhaps the week's donations, like the stock ticker that runs at the bottom of financial network telecasts. Imagine, for example, Al Gore delivering a wimpy speech on movie violence as the ticker pointed out the big lump of Hollywood gold that had dropped in his pocket that afternoon. A wimpy speech on movie violence. Remember those days, Tipper Gore? Man. Yeah, damn it, Jeremy says he was so fucking ahead of his time. It's crazy. These are the sorts of things he was talking about in 2000. If you're too young to remember 2000, you might not realize just how... Like, there's a reason he was talking about the Reform Party. This was nowhere close to the mainstream. Any of these sorts of subjects, really. When it comes to his own personal fundraising, Trump made a number of pledges, including entirely self-financing his campaign. Quote, if I ran for the nomination, I would refuse federal matching funds. If I were nominated, I would accept federal funds. I would refuse to grovel for campaign cash from any special interest. I would spend from my own funds whatever it took to win. Lastly, his own seriousness as a candidate. Trump seemed to have a pretty good idea of how his candidacy would be treated by the media. Quote, let's face it, if I run, it will be a boon to the political cartoonists and late-night talk show hosts. But I can take it. My president was self-aware. What a legendary American. Okay, last article here. For Alex Brucewitz here says, a surprisingly good read about Margot Martin in the Washington Post today. I'm shocked they treated her fairly. Margot is one of the most underrated yet impactful members of Team Trump. Her content has been viewed billions of times over the past year. She provides the raw material to Trump's influencer machine. Margot Martin, a lesser-known member of the president's staff, fuels social media with a blitz of Trump content. All right. Over the past 2 years, a little-known aide to President Donald Trump has become one of the GOP's most influential content creators, filming him dancing on a tarmac in Malaysia, serving French fries at McDonald's on the campaign trail, and greeting small children in the Oval Office. Margot Martin, a 30-year-old who gets as close to the president as his Secret Service detail, is the quiet engine of a social media operation that has transformed presidential communications. Armed with an iPhone camera, she gives what feels like a behind-the-scenes glimpse of the president and the most potent element that spurs online engagement, a sense of authenticity. Martin's raw material is then processed by a sprawling network of better-known right-wing influencers who use that content for memes, podcast clips, and shows that go viral, reinforcing Trump's bond with his most ardent supporters and maintaining his status as a ubiquitous pop culture figure for everyone else. During Trump's trip to Asia this fall, vertical videos and photos captured by Martin were viewed nearly 50 million times on her X account and more than 222 million times on the Team Trump Instagram and TikTok, not to mention the millions of views on posts from Trump supporters who cribbed the content and shared it themselves. It's curated, of course. You won't see images of Trump dozing off in a cabinet meeting or the bruise on his hand that are often promoted by the left, but even Democrats who view Martin's efforts as propaganda concede their effectiveness. The more you see something, the more you think it's true, said Sammy Cantor, a Democratic content creator and new media consultant. The more volume of content that they put out there that favors the image that they want out there, and the more that's in people's feeds and the more they see it, the more they're going to think it's reality or question less what the reality is versus what they're being told. Literally just describing the role of propaganda. Where's our propagandist? He gets it. Martin, who declined an interview request, served as a press assistant in the first administration. And there he is! He's listening! He's always lurking in the background. You never know when he's going to pop up. Then she moved to Palm Beach, Florida to continue working with Trump after he left office. A recording she made of Trump's book interviews became part of special counsel Jack Smith's investigation into the president's handling of classified documents. She was subpoenaed to testify before a federal grand jury. All of that, plus a low-key personality that is rare in Trump's world of brash advisors, has bonded her to the president, who at a campaign rally called her the most beautiful photographer in the world. She has the trust of the president, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said in an interview, noting the proximity of her desk just outside the Oval Office, the seat of power. So she's able to really see the inner workings of his everyday and share that with the American people. Compared with the flashy and controversial memes and edits often shared by other Trump and White House accounts, Martin's content on X is understated. A collection of mostly vertical photos and videos optimized for audiences scrolling on their phones. Captions usually include a brief description, a quote, and pronouncements like, "must watch," or "the people's president." She's a frequent user of the red heart, the American flag, the fire, and laughing emojis. The basic approach is ideal for creators looking to make their own content because the clips are free and ready to clip, unlike professional news videos that often require a licensing fee to news services such as Getty or the Associated Press. Imagine having to pay a licensing fee to get photos of your president. It really is about arming your base with the resources that they need, said Parker Butler, who directed the team that ran the Kamala HQ accounts for Kamala Harris's 2024 presidential campaign. The stream of material is, quote, so helpful for us to discuss what the administration is doing, said Link Lauren, a conservative political influencer who also served as a senior advisor for RFK Jr.'s presidential campaign. You'd be hard-pressed to find a Republican influencer or Politico who hasn't reposted one of Martin's videos or photos. A Washington Post analysis of social media posts found more than 300 high-profile right-wing influencers and politicians have mentioned Martin since the inauguration, sharing her posts thousands of times. Her posts have been shared more than 10 times in that time period by Elon Musk, the RNC, and Fox News. Leavitt credits Martin with fueling news cycles and primetime Fox News packages, making her a key cog in a media operation that has increasingly pushed aside traditional adversarial news gathering. Other allies credit Martin with building relationships among online supporters to further boost the White House message, which gives Martin an influence well beyond her 337,000 followers on her official X account. She's undoubtedly one of the most influential creators right now, and she's maybe the first ever White House influencer, said Alex Brusewitz, a senior advisor to a Trump-affiliated political action committee and architect of the Trump 2024 campaign's online strategy. Her content reaches the masses in a way that I don't think anybody in the administration, and any administration, has done before. Not all of Martin's work appears on her official account. She posts more personal content on Instagram, where she presents as a cross between a travel influencer and a presidential sidekick. Photo dumps and reels include shots of her sitting across from the president on Air Force One and behind the scenes on foreign trips, but are interspersed with gym content, concert videos, and clips of her being an aunt. That approach reflects the broader social media strategy the Trump campaign and Republican operatives embraced during the 2024 campaign, blending politics with other topics to reach lower propensity voters. She's kind of combining this lifestyle aesthetic with girl boss energy and almost like a travel influencer, said Asa Cohen, who served as Harris's official White House videographer and director of video. She pointed to a reel on Martin's account of Trump's August summit with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska as an example of whitewashing and sanitizing. The video is edited to look like any other travel influencer, she said, even as the content features high-level shots of the president on the plane, the military flyover, their handshake, and the Russian and American flags. Visually, it's very effective because it's normalizing Putin and it's normalizing the sort of friendship between the president and the United States and the dictator who commits horrific human rights abuses, she said. Trump officials disagree, calling Martin's work an example of transparency at the highest level. I couldn't think of anything less curated than an unedited filter video on an iPhone that is literally just simply posted and shared with the world in real time, Levitt said. And this article was written by Dylan Wells. This is Dylan Wells here. In case that you picked up on the catty, and its photo's not going to load. In case you picked up on the catty feminine bitching there. Okay. Well, that's all I got. Finally got through some of these things that have been backlogged for a little while. And we're at the 4-hour mark. Agit Master says, I sent a preview. Yes, that preview was a banger. A banger. You know what? I'm just going to play it again. We're going to watch it again. We're going to wrap it with this. Are we gonna ASTROLABE tomorrow, sir? Is the whole thing going to be done in time for us to ASTROLABE tomorrow evening? Hell yes! Yes! We are going, he is rendering now. So we will pseudo-wave tomorrow. Look at this. Here is your preview.
Why don't we just kill him?
Hello.
bit hot tonight. I can barely see the road from the heat coming up. Reach down between my legs, ease the seat back.
This is a documentary.
She's running, I'm buying, right behind it, real me now. Got the feeling, power steering, busy popping, ain't no stopping now.
Donald Trump! Oh, pseudo wave! Oh, we're going to rock out tomorrow. He said that we're going to have a bunch of wave breaks in the middle of the pseudo wave tomorrow, and they're all going to be Van Halen. So you guys better make sure you show up. You gotta, if you don't show up, you're going to have a significant number of Patriot points deducted from your Patriot points account. It'll be unforgivable, an unforgivable mistake to not show up for the pseudo wave tomorrow. Gig a Jew, wig or pig. Aristofag. That's right. That's right. If you don't show up tomorrow, you're going to get the dreaded alert. You have betrayed Trump. You have let down your president. You can't do it. So you got to make sure you show up tomorrow, where we will pseudo wave on the ASTROLABE, and it'll be glorious. Thank you to everyone tonight for showing up for this wonderful fun time. Congrats again to Hope Pilled. She is now, we got another winch. She got the winch tag when she was added to the Discord. We got a small contingent of winches in there, and they got their own tag in case anybody ever wants to tag all the women at one time. So another Foytriot, that's right. We're collecting our Foytriots. Congratulations to Hope Pilled for joining the King Pill Discord, getting a free year in there. If you guys would like to come join the rest of us, you can go to kingpill.com, sign up, join us. Thank you to Dave Johnson, the gayest man in the world, for the teal bucks and the 10 gifted subs today. Thank you also to Screwed Up Nevsky gifting a sub, to Douglas Archer, Pale Morning Dude with the kicks sent over. Thank you to all of you guys for all your support. I will catch you guys tomorrow. Another episode of the ASTROLABE, a special SATURLABE with a pseudo wave. For now, I leave you with Hulk.
When they took a shot at my hero, and they tried to kill the next president of the United States, enough was enough, and I said,